Did you like that? No.
Test. Good afternoon. My name is Steve Parks. I'm the chair for the Highland Beach Natural Resource Preservation Advisory Board. We're calling to order today the meeting for the board in regards to the quarterly meeting we have for the board. This is not a special meeting. Could you please all silence your cell phones at this point, and we'll call the roll, Ms. Thompson.
Member Chapelier? Here. Member Matthewman? Here. Member Stansfield? Here. Member Eastwood Egan?
Here.
Member Mirage?
Here.
Chairperson Parks?
Here. Can we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
For the record, Member Brenner is not here,
Mr. Brenner is not present.
not present.
Did he ask to be present by virtue by Zoom?
No,
How many meetings has he missed now?
2. This is the second one.
Okay, are there any additions or deletions to the agenda? Many of the members. I'd like to make a recommendation for not an addition so much as a correction, Ms. Thompson. I'm reading the agenda from last. We're talking about the agenda from today, I presume. Going to be elaborating on some of the points that have been raised on number, I guess on presentation 9A, as well as it may still make going to 9B. So I guess I'm just making a statement for the record that going to be incorporating what amounts to being the beach raking and the cleaning process we have, which Ms. Allen will elaborate on when she gets to that point. And we're going to go beyond that into what amounts to being discussions which effectively were raised by the commission and sent back to us for more for additional work, as well as some other issues associated with that. But it doesn't really change the actual order of the agenda.
Okay, so for the record, you're not really changing
I'm
the.
not changing it so much as expanding it.
Okay, yeah, no, that's fine.
All right. So do we have a motion for the agenda as presented? Please. Do we have a second, please?
I'll second.
Do a vote, please. All in favor, say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Yes.
I believe it's unanimous. Item number 5, public comments. Are there any pre-registered public comments, Ms. Allen?
I'm not aware of any. I'll defer to the clerk's office.
There's no pre-registrations for public comments and no one's here to provide comments.
In that case, we'll go beyond paragraph, item number 5 and go to item number 6, which is the presentation. Ms. Allen, are you going to make a presentation under this section, or are you going to reserve your presentation for the other old business?
I'll present on this section. You ready?
Yes.
Okay.
We're ready, willing, and
Okay, very
and
good.
anxious.
Okay. Well, good afternoon for the record, Ingrid Allen, Town Planner. On page 12 of your packets, I've prepared an agenda memorandum for you today, which basically provides an update on your last set of recommendations that you made to the Town Commission. These recommendations, again, were made at your last meeting, which was on August 11th, 2021. And in the memorandum, I've gone ahead and listed those 4 recommendations, which are detailed here. And basically, I've provided direction from the Town Commission. They did review these recommendations at their September 21st, 2021 meeting. So I'll go over each one briefly. The first one is that the board recommended approval of additional beach bucket trees so long as associations are willing to accept them on the property. The Town Commission indicated that before they wanted to approve additional beach bucket trees, they wanted to receive feedback from those HOAs that currently have a beach bucket tree on the beach and whether they're being utilized and what have you. The commission had asked staff whether we've gotten any input from the condominiums that currently have one. I personally haven't had any input from any resident or from any of the property managers. I know that I had indicated to the board at the last meeting in August that once the beach bucket trees were installed, I went ahead and reached out to each property manager, which is the person that we actually dealt with to get the installation, to go forward. Oh, thank you. And I had provided them an email. I asked them if they would like actually to post that email. It gave people just direction on providing input, that there's a tell a town option. Residents are more than welcome to, provide comments. Again, we didn't receive any. So the commission had asked, and you could see again on page 12 of your packets, that they requested that the board make these calls to the HOAs, again, to get feedback on the bucket tree usage. Again, we have 4 that are currently in place, and I'll be happy to email the board the list of those HOAs, the contacts, both the property manager and the HOA president. So I could do that after the meeting.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second, please, Ms. Allen? Insofar as we're being asked to go ahead and interact directly with the public in this matter and basically facilitate a conversation with the individuals that have the bucket trees. And for those members, by the way, and I want to interrupt myself and apologize, Ms. Stansfield is joining us today for the first time, and I did not have an opportunity to welcome her to that position. I'm reading by rote off this agenda and I forgot. I apologize, but welcome to our board and thank you for participating in the board. We need a volunteer from the board itself to facilitate the communication. I don't think it's appropriate for all 7 of us or 5 of us, whatever, who would do this to facilitate this. So does anyone on the board wish to be, would you like to be the intermediary?
If you want to do it, go. I was going to volunteer, but you're more than welcome to.
I think it'd be a nice way for me to start getting my feet wet in the position and something that I feel like capable of doing. And I know our community is interested in learning more as well. So I would be happy to take that on.
Great. So in that,
Can I just make a comment before we go
Always.
on about the bucket trees? We have one at the end of at our entry to the beach, and they are being used. I go to Sunrise every morning, and a lot of times in the morning, I'm like, oh, there's many buckets are missing. And this is at 7 o'clock in the morning. And then at the end of the day, they're back. So they are being used. I went and walked the beach myself, and unless it's just a fluke, our beach is cleaner.
I second that.
so Ms. Allen, in that light, would you provide the full board with the numbers, but we're going to leave it to Ms. Stansfield to be in the position to contact the individual associations that have the buckets, with the exception of the one which our board member has mentioned, because there's no association associated with that particular bucket tree, unfortunately.
Yeah, you're speaking of the one that's just north of 45 Ocean, right?
Right.
Right, so that particular bucket tree was authorized to be installed by the town manager. So, right, so it's that one, and in addition to that one, we have 4. So we'll email those the contact information. That's
And the
not a
board
problem.
thanks Mr. Labate for his kindness in doing so. Go ahead. I'm sorry I interrupted your
Okay.
presentation besides that.
All right. The second recommendation made by the board was to advise citizens to provide information regarding their concerns on the beach and also facilitate pictures or other documents that would indicate what the current beach raking situation is on the beach. The commission decided to bring in the beach raking companies that are currently licensed with FDEP to work in Highland Beach. And the commission did request that the board attend that meeting where they are going to present. As of right now, that meeting is scheduled for December 7th, 2021. That's a commission meeting. It does start at 1:30. Now you can view it live. You don't necessarily have to come in person. If you go to the town website on the main page, you'll see a link to the live feed. So wanted to advise the board on that.
Can I ask you a question regarding that? Are you the one that actually invited the beach raking companies?
I did reach out to them, yes.
Could you be kind enough to ask them to bring pictures with them of the equipment they're using?
I asked them if they could provide a PowerPoint. They do not want to provide a PowerPoint. This is what they told me. They prefer just a, a question answer type scenario. Yeah, I would have liked a PowerPoint, but they did not want to proceed with one. So
I don't really, as I said, I don't think we need as much of a PowerPoint as we need a picture of their equipment. It'd be really helpful and you can explain to them that the board would be greatly appreciative if they could give us a picture of the equipment they're using. It's just as simple as taking a photograph of what they're currently using on the beach. So everyone can be on the same page regarding the nature of what they're doing and what they're using to do it.
actually, if I go on their web pages, they have pictures of their equipment. So I'll be happy to reach out to them, but if not, if you go to their webpage, I could provide the information. There's 2 beach rakers that work in Highland Beach. I could send an email to the board after the meeting of those links to their website, and you could, I believe both of them have pictures. I remember seeing it on one at least, but I believe they both have pictures.
My only concern is knowing what they're using. It's on our particular beach because there's a tremendous difference between what was used 30 years ago and what's used today. And if they're using 30-year-old equipment, that basically is they're facilitating the same problems that were brought to our attention back in January of this year. So I'm not putting more on you than I should, but if they're going to present themselves and say what they're doing on the beach, at least show us the tractors and the actual raking system that they're using to do it. And
I will most definitely email them and ask them that you're making that request.
or if you'd like, I can back it up by a phone call myself if you give me the actual contact information, because I have no problem at all with doing that. Go ahead.
Okay. The next recommendation was consider hiring an arborist to facilitate a report back to the board to evaluate the condition of the vegetation in the town on public and private property adjacent to public streets. So I indicated in your agenda memorandum that the town has contracted with Bartlett tree experts. They're conducting an assessment of the population of the palms that are situated on the right of way on State Road A1A. Actually, I did receive the report. I got an email at 11 something today. They submitted the report. I didn't have a chance to look at it, but it does look like it's a salt issue, which is what's causing some of the issues with those palms. I'm going to forward that report to the town manager, and we'll go ahead and provide it to the board after the meeting, as I indicated in the memorandum, and we'll have a chat with the town manager as far as next steps go. And let me see, I think I brought a copy of that email real quick. Nope. Okay, and the last recommendation was to allow a statement in the manager's minute to facilitate more information to the public regarding the use of water and the use of chemicals that may affect the water quality of the town. Again, the commission had no objection to this. We actually have a PowerPoint. You're going to see the next, there we go. In the next manager's minute, right, there is going to be this write-up. This is information that comes directly from the Solid Waste Authority. As I mentioned to the board at your August meeting, a lot of agencies, specifically or including the Solid Waste Authority, they already have great marketing materials to promote recycling. So, we don't necessarily, or the board doesn't necessarily have to reinvent the wheel here. So again, this is text that's coming directly from their website, just making people sure they understand, what goes in what bin. Sometimes people tend to put things in there that may not, correspond to what the Waste Authority wants. So this is the write-up that's going to be coming up. I think it's already going to be published or may be published. It's the October manager's minute. You can always go to the town website for a link to the manager's minute.
I have a question. Could you scroll up a little bit? I didn't notice in the manager's minute that it had, does it scroll up or no?
No.
Oh. I had included in for like a link to Publix where, because it says for the plastic bags, you can go down again.
I think it's right there. Isn't that the public or what is it?
I didn't, oh, there, you mean.
There it is, Public's website.
Oh, there it is.
Yes, it's on the
Okay.
second page. It's a 2-page write-up.
You mean,
I know that you had coordinated with Teresa with this information, so.
Pardon me, but didn't Vice Chair Mirage submit some information which is incorporated into that section, or is it somewhere else?
This is what I was told was.
Oh,
going to
okay,
be
so
in there.
it does have I just want to make sure, because I hadn't noticed that it had the public's information where, because you can just, instead of going to that, wherever that recycling operation is, it could go to Publix and drop off those,
Okay.
Publix
plastic
will
bags.
accept plastic bags, as a matter of fact.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, and our system won't, which is really unusual, but unfortunate.
yeah, so you can just leave that, that's what I do. I get rid of any plastic bags
Didn't
that I
you-
have.
I'm sorry
There.
to touch you. Now, didn't you write something up? And isn't that your work? You wash your car wash?
Well, I got it from the website, from a website that I researched, so yes.
Well, take credit for it. You put it together. But I was thinking the actual I think you mentioned at the last meeting about phosphates being in the water or certain kind of chemicals that are going into our stormwater system and going into our canals. Did someone else raise that?
So the car soap that.
It's the kind of soap you use, right? Correct.
Mhm.
People don't realize and recognize that we have a very shallow water system in this town. So everything you put into the storm drains goes right into the canals and the intercoastal. So what they're actually doing is facilitating the destruction of the intercoastal by using harsh chemicals. That's why I don't know. As I said, I was appreciative of the fact you did it, and that's what we asked you to do in regards to that. So that is did you put that together, or did that come out of some kind of canned approach to?
There was a website that had that information, and I just forwarded it to the town, Tricia, and she was able to incorporate that into the manager's minute and on our website as well.
Yeah, I think I spoke to Ms. Cuevas. It's Teresa Cuevas, correct? The town manager.
Teresa,
Teresa
yes.
Cuevas, right? I don't want to mispronounce her name. But I think that was well done, and basically to the point that the car washing and so on should be restricted, or at least people should be aware of the fact they should use marine-ready chemicals. As a matter of fact, people don't realize that. Maybe we can publish it now at this meeting, that if they use material that's made for boats, providing, of course, they're biologically, satisfactory, it's a lot better and it works just as well in your car. And what people don't realize, and I found out from a car wash, is that Dawn or Palmolive or any of these dishwashing soaps work just as well as any of the commercial car wash products and don't cause the havoc that we have from the very expensive and unfortunately chemically free. But I'm interrupting your conversation, Ms. Allen, so I'll let you go on.
Yeah,
Actually,
there's biodegradable soap, like there's soap that you can use, that you can ask your car wash person to use, because that's what I did.
Boat, anything to use for a boat.
Because I asked him what he was using,
Yeah.
and I don't know what, he said some brand, but it was like a regular brand. And I asked if
Okay.
he could start using something that's more environmentally friendly.
Yeah, like if he's using McGuire's or one of the other big car wash company soaps, they're going to be very strong chemicals. But Palmolive works just as well in your car, believe it or not. I didn't know that until a car wash told me. The professional washover on Dixie Highway, someone told me that it works really well. Anyway, onward and upward. Are you finished with that presentation?
Yeah, that's basically the update. I'm happy to address any questions. I just want at this moment, just to follow up on one item, if the board recalls at the August meeting, there was a discussion about adding a peg at the lower level of the bucket trees
Mhm.
for better accessibility for kids. I did discuss this with the Public Works Director, and he didn't think it was a good idea. He felt that keeping it at a lower level of peg, you may have kids kind of crash into it or bump into it. So he felt it was best to keep the tree, with those pegs a little bit on the higher side. So that was just the only other item I wanted to follow up from the last meeting.
Could
And I'm
you-
happy to address any questions.
Just to that point, we actually recommended it in regards to the ADA, not because of the children only. We have a situation involving individuals that may either be height restricted or effectively can't reach up that high. So although children may be affected by these pegs theoretically, we have an obligation under the ADA to make sure that we have accessibility for anything we do in this town. So I would assume that the director has to realize that, and he can make one or two pegs or put a peg in the back of the, in other words, not make them all the way around like he has right now.
Well, a lot of the access, I believe several of the beach accesses aren't necessarily ADA compliant. I don't know if the one access that you all have, it's not ADA compliant.
No,
So
I'm-
there's a
I'm-
lot of nonconformity. I'll mention it again to the Public Works Director, but I'll mention it to him.
Tell them
the
this,
town manager.
maybe you could just stagger it. Instead of having them nested all the way around in one place, have them like 2 below and 2 above, whatever. That way he's actually breaking it up. And it would also look more attractive too.
I'll discuss it with the Public Works Director and also just the town manager as well to keep him in the loop.
Thank you. Any other questions we have regarding the topics?
I don't know if our beach bucket is under the rules of the ADA because it's a private path.
We're facilitating it. We're the town of Highland Beach. So basically we're facilitating, a system of some sort. And you know what? I'm not so much concerned about the ADA as I am. I think I really would like him to just put a couple of pegs lower. I don't think there's any reason why it's going to be a problem for the children or whatever that are going to be involved here. And I think they should be able to grab a bucket just as much as any adult. As a matter of fact, we should be trying to encourage them to be as proactive as possible on the beach in regards to cleaning it up. So I disagree with the director of, this is Mr. Roman, this is Pat Roman. Okay. Well, maybe I could convince him otherwise, who knows? But right now, that's not a tremendous issue. Do we get to the chemicals yet? The water quality? You have no opposition to it says here the commission has no opposition to this recommendation. How do we incorporate that recommendation?
It's going to be in the manager's minute, the PowerPoint that I just put up.
Can we stress that in some way, or it's already done? I'm sure that particular one's done.
Yes.
Okay.
Also, on the topic of the information that we're providing the residents, I just noticed on the website, it does have, we did add the recycling, the bin information, but I don't see the information, the additional information at the bottom that had the Publix and what to do with the plastic bags. Could we add that to our
On your
website?
webpage?
Yes,
Sure, I'll get with Teresa on that. No worries.
thank you.
Has that section been published already, or is it going to be published in the manager's minutes?
I believe it's already been published. It's
Okay.
the October manager's minute.
So when's the next publication?
I believe I think it's every 2 months. Jill, do you know?
I'm not entirely sure, but I can find out.
You help, can we, we're entitled to put an insertion into that also, I presume, am I right?
In the next manager's minute?
Mhm.
Sure, if that's what the board desires. If you go on the town webpage, yeah, it is posted on the main page on the October 21st manager's minute. I believe it is every 2 months, but I'll double check that.
What does the board think about publishing in this particular next upcoming edition, some kind of a publication regarding the use of the bucketries? And specify and look and, emphasize that. As a picture of the bucket
I
tree.
think the board needs to be mindful, again, the bucket trees are on private property, so we don't want, I think maybe some of the condos would have issue with other residents coming on their property, grab a bucket, so just be mindful, that's all.
Fine, but the topic of conversation coming up in a little while, but we have public access to the beach all the way down the 2.8 miles of beach. So where they can have all the private property they want, but they have easements in favor of the population of Highland Beach. And if they put a bucket tree there, we're entitled to go to the bucket tree, use it and bring it back. That's unfortunately the reality. That's what we're going to discuss. And that's part of the topic of conversation on number 9.
Right, but we have to be mindful of, well, I don't know that the bucket trees are necessarily on the easement. Staff hasn't looked into that, but
Is it on the beach?
it's on the beach,
So if it's on the beach, it's on the sand, right?
right?
So that's the easement.
The entire beach?
The entire beach up to the dunes. In other words, everything from the dunes down to the water is all public easement. So if they are, first of all, I don't think they're going to object to us picking garbage up on their property. So I can't, unless of course they're really, fastidious about doing it themselves, but
Maybe we could put something about the success that we've seen on near the 45 Oceans
I think people should.
location where Diane had said it seemed as though, when she walks out, it looks like people are using them. Well, they are using them, and then it looks cleaner.
You know, the bottom line is that if you live on the beach and that is your property up to the high tide watermark, you are responsible for keeping it clean. So either they go out there and clean it themselves or they allow people with the beach bucket to clean it. I can't imagine that it would ever be a problem.
First of all, I think the significant number of the buckets are in front of multi-unit condominiums, if I'm not mistaken, Ingrid.
Yes.
In that case, then these people need to be illuminated as to what they're there for. And if they possibly read the manager's minutes or meetings, minutes, then they'll at least have a better understanding of what we intended. So it's not like we're publishing it and endorsing people to walk on condominium property. We're just elaborating on the fact that we put them there so they be used properly. So it's just a matter of adding a picture and emphasizing the fact that this is an absolute necessity to provide Highland Beach with a cleaner beach. Because so far we have no facility for the actual town itself to clean the beach. We're working on that. Any other questions, comments?
And then if we get feedback from you, your research from calling, maybe a little bit better feedback, we could, in the next manager's minute, we, you know, just the success rate, we could like a continuation of you know, the story, I guess, or the, you know, the effort.
We're going to leave it to Ms. Stansfield to drive, excuse me, we leave it to Ms. Stansfield to drive home the point. And maybe get the board meetings to, I don't know, can we circulate something to them, Ingrid? Is there some kind of a brochure you have for the bucket trees we could excerpt and give to Ms. Stansfield to turn over to them?
I do
Or
not have a brochure for the bucket trees, no.
Can you, I know you did a PowerPoint presentation on the bucket trees, and that was done in the course of trying to authorize them to begin with. Do you have anything that updates them or show? I think you did it for the last commission meeting, as a matter of fact.
There's
You showed a picture
photos.
of it, right?
Yeah, there's
It wasn't-
photos on the website.
It wasn't per se a presentation. It was, you know, one slide, which basically showed different photographs of the Volusia County bucket tree. And we basically used the Volusia County bucket tree as a template for the town bucket tree. So that was it. I showed that same slide to the town commission when it went before them, you know, to get that initial approval. So yeah, it's just one slide with, you know, like a zoom in into the bucket and a picture of the actual bucket trees that they use, and then a zoom in onto the label, the pictogram with the instructions on how to, you know, clean it up.
I see the, go ahead, sorry. Town bucket, town, that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the one from the town website, the one that you put up there, which has the 4 pictures on it, which has the pictogram on it and so on.
Okay.
Can you send a copy of that, just excerpt it from wherever you got that from, if you composed it for Ms. Stansfield to give to the, to send out with an email to the condominium?
Hey, I'd love to share my correspondence I had with my own property manager over at the Highland Beach Club as it pertained to making motions so that they can investigate whether or not we could have one, since we have a trash receptacle at the base of our stairs to the beach. And all I had to do was send them the link to your website, which was very detailed with the pictures. So, and again, instead of having paper, I am comfortable putting it out there. And again, as I directed my own property manager, Katie Shannon, to the web page specifically without having to give her paper copies, and again, add to recyclable materials that needed to go somewhere. And she was able to easily see that and just made the comment, though I'd like to put it out there. She made the comment that she was contacted by the town, as she recalls, but the communication was unclear. She really didn't know. We're totally open to this, but it just took a little push from me working with her to educate her. But the materials on the website were adequate for her to present to our board for them to move forth with the, saying like, yes, please put us on a list when the town approves additional bucket trees.
So you would get a bucket tree and a trash can.
We already have the trash.
Oh, you do
can.
have the. Okay,
We have a
perfect.
town issued Highland Beach decal on a trash can at the base of our steps and our easement to the beach.
Okay.
My point being, again, I feel very comfortable with what you have on the website as it pertains to supporting what it is, how it works, what it looks like. So I think I'm, as a communication with the existing and checking into how it's going, I think I have what I need at this time, if that's okay.
Where is your association again?
I live right next door in the Highland Beach Club,
Which is further
2 steps north,
south of, yeah, right.
2 steps
It's north,
north of
actually
us.
north of us. Right?
Right between the church and here.
Could you elaborate as to how much it's costing per the buckets now? Because I know you had a
Yeah.
problem with the last
Yeah.
meeting.
Yeah. When I initially provided a memorandum to the board on costs, Again, it was based on input that we got from Volusia County, was $225 for each tree. So it's about, I think I got a quote from the Public Works Director, about 300 something dollars. So it's really about 1,200 for the 4 total.
Can we make a recommendation that they approve that, or do we need to make a recommendation they approve that so we can get the buckets? Because now with the Stansfield Association, and do you have 3 more that are waiting, I believe?
Yes.
So
But
what do we have to do to facilitate?
You have to get the input from, the direction that the commission gave you. They want to get the input from the current condominiums that have a town installed bucketry. And once you provide that input, then I think, you can provide, that would be your justification for recommending that additional bucketries be installed. Hopefully you get good input.
Did you ask Mr. Roman if there's actually additional necessities for buffered for trash collection receptacles out there? Has he had a larger amount of trash to collect in the last couple of months and these buckets are putting in there?
Again, when the gentlemen go out there to pick up trash, they're just dumping it. They're not necessarily looking to see if there's more or less. I mean, nothing has really stood out, like, they're out there picking up the trash. It's not like any of them came back and said, wow, this is, much heavier. Again, it's just not something that they're doing.
I'm just trying to figure out how to quantify what they want.
Right.
So I guess it's going to be up to your creativity to figure out.
I don't know
how
if
to
it's
quantify.
about quantifying it. I think it's just a matter of getting feedback, verbal feedback. That was the take I got on it, but see what those HOAs say.
Okay. Anything else? Anything else? Okay, next item. Anything else, Ms.
Mr. Parks, before we move on to the next item, we actually skipped 7A, approval of the minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Actually, we were in 6. That was the presentation. Now we're on 7. That's what I thought.
No, we were
It
doing.
was a presentation. Anyway,
Yeah, we were doing
okay.
8A actually.
So
so
we'll
we have to
go
go back
over,
to
we'll just do-
7A.
no problem at all. The board's been presented with the approval of the minutes from the August 11th, 2021 meeting. I personally have a question and a correction I'd like to make on those minutes, but I'd like to know if anyone else has any questions or concerns regarding those minutes. Yes, no, anyone have any option? Editing issues? All right, I'll just go ahead and go forth with my question. It's my understanding that our obligations are to make recommendations. And as much as it's just in that, it's just a situation involving wording, I suppose. The way that they were, our motions were made, basically in telling motions to, approve things, whatever. I think we ought to rephrase that in our minutes in the future, at least, and rephrase them as recommendations directly. I looked at the actual minutes themselves that are attached to your binder here. And what page did they start at, Ingrid? Do you know?
The minutes?
The minutes start on page 6 of the agenda.
Right. Again, this is just to be consistent with what we're responsible for doing and what we're not. I mean, these are all recommendations, but they basically are being characterized. The phrase is move to request the town commission authorize additional bucketries. Recommendation. We should really make it to be conformed to the actual rules and regulations we're facing.
Okay.
Make a
All of
recommendation.
the minutes for
Mhm.
all of the boards are formatted the same exact way. We were doing recommendations before, but I don't remember if you have a memory of Len Rubin coming to one of the meetings stating that they can be in the form of motions, and that was fine.
That's
So we
fine.
went ahead and made all of them in the same form for all of our minutes across the board.
It's form over substance, actually, to be honest with you. It's not a matter of concerning about. I just wanted to make sure that it's understood that it's a recommendation in the context of being one to the commission. Because the motion basically, I don't know, as I said, I was just being consistent with what Ms. Allen has told me in the past, we were able to do and not able to do. And
Yeah,
believe
I
me,
mean, the motion is fine because you do have a first and second for the board agreeing that they want the recommendations to go to the commission. So it's fine in the form of motions.
okay, no, as I said, we're just going to recommend that that's the case. Okay,
No
that's
problem.
fine.
Were there any other corrections to the minutes?
No, so everyone else are you comfortable with the agenda, excuse me, the approval of the minutes from the August 11th, 2021 meeting? Do I have a motion to approve?
I motion to approve the minutes as stated from the meeting of August 11th, 2021.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Yes.
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 Opposed? Give unanimous approval of your minutes. Onward to item number 8, unfinished business. An update on the board's recommendation to the commission. We kind of went through this on 6 in the presentation section, but I'm going to leave it to Ms. Allen to add anything she wants to add to that, or
No, I think the agenda memorandum, speaks for itself. We're really looking to the chair to enlighten us on the information. As I said, we did a preliminary search. I don't know if there were things in the past, maybe it was at a previous board meeting or something that was maybe presented to the commission. We couldn't find anything. So if you can provide any input on any information that was handed out in the past, that would be very helpful.
actually the conversation I had with the commission regarding this was at a commission meeting in February of this year. So it wasn't at one of our board meetings. It was actually in the context of remarks made by Robert Paddock, who was one of the citizens that was complaining about beach raking. And in the context of that conversation, I mentioned to the board that I had done research regarding the use of the beach. But before I go there, I wanted to just go through in order of your agenda today. 8B, which is the update on the assigned tasks that we have from the last meeting. I believe each of the board members accepted the responsibility of doing certain things for the board. So going from right to left, left to right, you want to start with Diane?
Okay, the only thing that I really found was that there are maintenance standards for cultivated landscape areas. So the palm trees that are on A1A should be looked at, should be fertilized and maintained in some way. And the same thing for the beach, the sand dunes. All required plants, trees, and landscaping shall be maintained in a healthy, pest-free condition. And then there's removal of nuisance species. I don't know how far we want to go with going to the people that live on the beach and have improper plants on their sand dunes and make them rip them out and put them back in, but that is what should be done. I mean, if it's not an appropriate plant, it should be removed. But I don't know who would, go and do that. And, I don't want to get in the middle of getting all these people very angry and upset.
Yeah, you also have another thing to be mindful of. When you take plants out of the dune, you have to get FTEP approval for that. You can't just go mow the dune. So
Even if it's an
another
invasive
component.
species, like if it's something that shouldn't be there.
I think if anyone would call me and ask me that they want to remove something that's invasive, I would still have them go to FTEP. Yeah,
Okay.
that would be my comment to them. Yeah.
We're going to reach that in number 9 anyway.
Okay.
We're going to go into an extensive discussion of the beach. But what about the palm trees? You said you saw you.
They should be fertilized. And I don't know if in that email you said it was a salt issue, which makes a
Yes.
lot of sense. Did they have a remedy?
Again, they submitted the report. I received it at 11:08.
Okay.
I went to lunch. I didn't have
So
time.
we'll
to look
get
at it.
back to that.
But I will read what the email says. It says, and again, this is coming from the arborist. He says here, basically, I attribute the appearance to damage to the fronds from salt spray coming up over the dune. I had a quick chat with the Public Works Director, and he said that you would have to put a little bit more potassium in the fertilizer to deal with the salt. Again, I have not reviewed the report and what their findings are, and what their recommendations are. As I said, we'll forward it to the town manager. We'll talk with him about next steps. I'll forward the report to the board and we'll see
Okay.
how things go.
I mean, I imagine that's a very easy fix.
I do have a question about that. I understand from the commission's point of view, in the last meet, at the meeting where they addressed our concerns, that they felt that those trees were on private property because we're supposed to maintain the swales in front of the individual properties on A1A, where most of these royal palms are located at the moment. We're talking about the royal palms, by the way. which cost about $2,000 a piece, and the town put 50 of them in 2000. I think it was 2006, because they put them in after Hurricane Wilma. I'm concerned that people may be obligated to do that, but don't know how to do that. And I'm also concerned there's no consistency in the manner in which they're taken care of. So one of the questions or suggestions I have for this board is to recommend a statement being made to the public as to whether or not this town is taking care of this, because apparently they are now. This Bartlett Tree Service is going to make recommendations and I presume facilitate care.
I would
Once they're
suggest that you wait to see the report. I don't know if the findings or the recommendations will be that something that the town will undertake. Per code, you're right, it is the adjacent property owners that are responsible, but I would wait till the report comes out. It's reviewed by staff and the town manager before, my suggestion would be that before you make a recommendation, because I want to see what the town manager thinks about it and how we'll proceed forward. So,
So we'll get a report
maybe-
back from the town manager at our next meeting.
yeah.
Okay.
I could forward the report prior to the next meeting, but I just think maybe a bit premature to make a recommendation when you haven't, even staff hasn't really looked at the report yet and what the findings are. So I think it's appropriate to take a look at that first. That's staff suggestion.
Well, insofar as the care of the swale area, which is what we're talking about, is now within the purview of the individual homeowners, can't we make a recommendation that they investigate, or we get some ideas as to what they should and shouldn't do with the swale? What kind of fertilizers they use or don't use on that particular area of their lawn, so as to avoid the possibility of damaging our trees?
Well, actually, the town is been looking at a right-of-way permit ordinance for over a year now. It's going to be on the town commission agenda in November. In that right-of-way permit ordinance, we've added some language to protect swales. I recommend you look at it. It'll be again on the November 9th town commission meeting. Again, there are some general references to the protection of swales. Again, maybe you want to look at that, see what your thoughts are. As part of that right-of-way permit, staff had made the recommendation that we will be putting together some swale details, both vegetative, different types of swale details in our handbook. We have a site construction handbook. And before anyone starts construction, we provide them that handbook. And so we're going to be working on these swale details if the commission does go ahead and approve the ordinance. So there's some things that work right now. There are things at play. So I don't know if maybe you want to hold off until your next board meeting and I could advise you how things have moved forward or not with the right-of-way permit.
What exactly are they having? Like, are you contemplating suggesting to the commission regarding right-of-way?
We're recommending a right-of-way permit for certain types of improvements in the right-of-way. There are certain improvements in the right-of-way which are allowed without a right-of-way permit, such as mailboxes, certain types of landscaping, so long as it's in replacing it in the same location. It's quite a lengthy ordinance. So that's really the gist of it. What brought upon the right-of-way permit is that people were putting things in the right-of-way and impacting the underlying infrastructure. So as a way to be a little bit more proactive, we want to be sure that people putting improvements in the right-of-way, that the town is aware of it, especially Public Works. They have all kinds of, pipes and things like that. So we've had instances where someone's putting something in, they break a water pipe or something like that. So that was really the genesis, if you wish, of the ordinance. But again, I recommend you take a look at it because I said there is some references to swale protection. There's not too much detail, but there is a reference to protecting swales.
Does the work you're doing also include scarification or some other way of managing the water runoff from A1A?
No. I think I'd mentioned to you in the past, the town is working with FDOT with regards to drainage. There was a report done, I think it was in 2016. I believe that was the correct date. So the town is working with FDOT on that.
Right, and I spoke to an engineer named Michael Miller at the DOT 4 chapter in Fort Lauderdale. And we talked about the scarification process they began. Scarification, by the way, for the lack of, is the sculpting out of areas of the swale to facilitate the inclusion of water. Unfortunately, for those of us who are on the west side of A1A, our swale is nothing more than a place where water is captured. And if it's not built properly, the water ends up in our driveways, which is one of the personal problems I had as a resident on that side of the street. The same thing does not occur on the opposite side of the street, on the east side, because the east side, although it has the same 10-foot DOT easement, does not seem to have, they did not care to put in any type of a scarified swale, so there's no entrapment for the water. So the water on A1A all goes to the west. They began a project, so historically from 2015, where they came in and they literally removed 10 inches of area of ground and then landscaped it so it facilitated the water. My concern is with the right-of-way issue you're bringing up, Ingrid, is that that the town does not ignore the fact that we need to have that scarification done. And people putting any kind of landscaping in there is going to be transient because it's going to be removed by DOT. I think in 2 years is their program. Mr. Miller indicated to me that the process was
Yeah.
going to be
Right.
some kind of a 10-year, some kind of a rotation where the DOT comes in and does work.
Yeah, it's called the Triple R project. Yeah.
And that should be in 2023 or
I
24.
don't recall exactly. I've not been in on those conversations or meetings. But keep in mind, right now, if someone's putting landscaping, we have a new single-family home coming on A1A. They
Mhm.
have to obviously get approval for that landscaping in the right-of-way from FDOT. In addition, the town has a landscape maintenance agreement with FDOT. So anytime you add new landscaping, it's an amendment to that landscape maintenance agreement. That has to go before the commission for approval. So town is very much aware of what's going on as far as the landscaping on
What is the
A1A.
town doing about scarifying the existing?
Pardon?
What are they doing about fixing the problem on the drainage problem we have?
Again, I'm not privy to those meetings. It's really, drainage is really outside the board's purview. All I know is the town is working with FDOT and giving that input.
Okay. So Diane, anything further on your comments?
No.
Okay. Thank you very much. Ms. Chatelier?
Yes. Would you like my report now?
Mhm.
Perfect. Would you help me, Janelle, with the PowerPoint? Okay, so you guys all have this handout. You see it on your desk? There it is. It's the one with the black binder clip.
Mhm.
Okay. It's got the black binder clip. First thing I want you to do is mark your pages 1 through 9. It'll make it easier for me to explain what's going on. I'll walk you through it. So the first page, it says chapter 68D21. Second page. The third page. The fourth page is very important. Please put a, thank you. Please put a star next to 68D-21.004 on page 4. Please do that. Then page 5 is very important. Okay, page 6 is not important. Page 7 is important, and page 8. And the last one is the application process, which I think it's being done with the town manager and the chief, Craig Hartman, working with the FWC. Okay, so my presentation is on what you asked me to look into, slowing the speeds down on the intercoastal. Do I click here? This, the arrow, okay. All right. Okay. So boating accidents, in summary, are caused by speeding, boat wakes, operator negligence, blind corners, and boater congestion. So we know that boats are allowed to go 25 during Manatee season, 30 miles per hour on the ICW through Highland Beach, which encompasses that area from Spanish River to Linton is about 4 miles. The speed zone is authorized by the FWC, which is the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, and it falls under the rules of the FAC, which is, I'm throwing all this out at you so you understand what all these acronyms mean, which is an administrative code. And it's governed by 68D FAC, which is page 1, that handout I gave you, which are the boating restriction areas, and 68C, the one I told you to put a highlight next to, is, 68D has to do with boating speeds. 68C has to do with the Manatee, the Florida Manatee Sanctuary Act, which is a federal law. It's based on a federal law. These rules are based on boating safety issues described in chapter 327.46, which is a Florida statute, and they've not been revised for quite some time. I forget the date, so I didn't know what to say. This is a great picture I took off of my boat, and it's right there where the death took place, August of 2021. And John and I were just cruising down the intercoastal on our boat, and we slowed down because after you leave Spanish River Bridge and you cross like the Fender area, you can speed up. You can go 30, 25, depending on the time of year. So everybody sped up, and I had a trail of little boats like that following me and some bigger boats. So everybody was going really, really fast, and everybody was passing to the left of us and to the right of us. Now, John and I cannot go 25 or 30. We would destroy the other boats on the intercoastal. I cannot go the speed that I'm allowed to go. I have to go 15 if I want to go fast. I'm still shooting off a ferocious wake. So John and I slowed the boat down, and this boat here had an opportunity to go speeding by very close to the same seawall where the woman got thrown out of the boat and hit the wall and died, and 6 other people were thrown out of the boat. So that's at the end of Bel Air Drive. Okay, so if you go into Spanish River Bridge underneath, this is the sign you see. It says congested area, next 4 miles, vessel operators are responsible for their wakes. That's been there since, I think they told me, in the 1990s. Nothing's changed since the 90s. So boater safety in Highland Beach is governed by one sign on the south of the Spanish River Bridge, warning boats of congestion and their boat wakes. So you are responsible for your wakes. John and I, being good boaters that we are, we slowed the heck down because we knew we had all these boats behind us, and our boat would destroy these boats. I mean, literally throw them into seawalls because they're passing us on the right, they're passing us on the left. And this is all due to boater congestion.
What are you driving?
We're driving a trawler, which I don't know the tonnage. I used to know, but it's very heavy, and we put out one serious wake.
Yeah, it's a semi-displacement.
It's a semi-displacement boat, and it's true. We put out, I mean, sometimes people go like that to us, like slow down, but we're going very slow. So John and I are very mindful of our wake because if I see a canoer or somebody or a paddleboarder, I know I could just slip them over. So John and I are very careful. I've been on Jenny's boat, which is a little Boston whaler, and I'm almost destroyed on the weekends by boat wakes. So we don't even take our boat out on the weekends anymore. It's crazy around here. So we got that clear. So 68D has to do with boating traffic regulations, and 68C is the Manatee, thus the change of the speeds during the year. So I got on our boat and I said, "Oh, John, please get me closer, get me closer." I could barely read that sign. I had to get so darn close, and I had to make it bigger just to read what it says. Nobody pays attention to that sign. That's just on the south side of Spanish River Bridge. Now, when you cross under the bridge, yeah, it says resume safe speed 25 to 30, and that's the next thing. When I talked to the FWC permitting guy, he told me that that sign is obsolete. It shouldn't be there, that they've been trying to get rid of those for years now. So that's not even, I mean, if you look at the bottom where it says some numbers, he can tell you what year that was enacted. I think it was 92 or something. So it just gives you an idea of what's going on the ICW. Okay, so I'm not sure if you got this in your packet. You were supposed to, but it's okay if you didn't. So you can get this on the internet. Basically, it's just the rules for Palm Beach County. And you'll see different things. It'll cite 68D and then it'll give you what the speed is, and 68C. Just know 68D is boating safety and C is the Manatee things. So idle speeds all year round are located on either side of the bridges, on Linton and then of course Spanish River. Slow speeds are located in backwaters, but there's no sign. So if you go into like our Belido Lake or whatever it's called, there's no sign that says go slow. You just assume that when you're in backwaters, you slow down. Well, I don't get that on Bel Air Drive often. I got people zipping on through, and that's a problem for us. But, you know, it just causes our boats to go waking around, and it bangs into our seawalls and bangs into our docks, etc. But that's another topic. The ICW needs an ordinance establishing a slow speed minimum wake because of the following things. And these are cited in your handout on page 4. Okay, so I took what was given to me by the FWC and I've made notes of some things. Number 1, unsafe level of vessel traffic congestion. We qualify, check that box. We've got it going on, especially Saturdays and Sundays. I can't say so much during the week, but I know Saturday and Sunday and holidays. Number 2, it's an area of many reported accidents caused by speeding and boat wakes. We still don't know why that woman died, because I asked the FWC guy the other day. Actually, I was at the boat show in Fort Lauderdale and there was an FWC guy who was one of the first responders. And I asked him, do we know what happened? He said, no, it's still under investigation. Okay, what's to investigate? There was a boat wake. Boom. Jenny kind of was there right after it happened. Also, the other one that occurred in June, I actually have the accident report from that. Did you hear that one? Where the 3 boats were all going down the intercoastal. There was a big boat wake that went by. They slowed down, and the 4th boat behind them, who was not with them, he sped up and landed on top of another boat, and the guy's head was crashed. And the guy, I got this information from the Coastal Star, all the details of that. Okay. There's many, many more accidents. These were within the last 6 months. Number 3, this is one I am serious about. Blind corners are not recognized at this time. Now, I've mentioned this to the FWC a few times, and they don't want to hear about the blind corners. If you look at your handout on page 4, it gives you the definition of a blind corner. It's basically a place where you come out and they can't see you coming out. Yes, you're supposed to honk your horn of your boat. I forget what that's called, securite. I think that's the legal Coast Guard jargon. And no, if those people are going so fast, they're passing each other, you're coming out, the nose of your boat is out, and you're going to get hit. So that there are a few blind corners, and I'll point them out to you. And the last one is, it's an area of where we live, our stretch is an area of significant risk of collision. And we've had boating accidents, near misses, and deaths. Okay. Next one. These I took from Google Earth. And John and I have taken our boat to these different areas and we tested using our boat, using Jenny's boat, are these blind corners? And I even took the measurement tool to see how wide it is. So one of them, I can't see right now, the first one is, I think, I can't tell. I can't tell because
It looks like Russell.
okay, I can't tell because it's being marked by that black thing right there. What is that? I can't tell. Well, the other one is Delray Sands, the Library Bend, and then my street where you can see the sanctuary.
Could
No, the first one, I can't see what I labeled under that.
with all respect,
Yes.
I have to interrupt you for 1 second and ask you a question. with the Natural Resources Preservation Advisory Board.
Yes.
This is not a natural, this is not, as far as I know, and Ms. Allen can clearly correct me on this, directly in line with what we're supposed to be involved with in regards to.
You mean manatees? They
manatee.
live in there.
No, no. Manatees are, that's what I'm hoping you're getting to, because if we're going to tie this into anything that we do over here as a board,
Yeah.
we have to tie it into the manatee.
Well, the
So
manatees live in there. And those are blind corners. They don't stand a chance either. The only reason I'm bringing this up is because the FWC told me that the only way we're going to slow the boats down to help the manatees is to go through boating safety because of the accident we had where the woman died and then several other accidents.
Right.
But I'm just pointing out to you that these are criterias that we are meeting. One of them being blind corner, vessel traffic congestion, accidents, deaths.
I understand that, and I'm not disputing that, and I'm not disputing your intentions. I'm suggesting to you that the proper board or the proper conduit for this particular presentation relative to the ordinance being changed and relative to your boating safety issues is the commission. I
Right.
don't believe that it really falls in the purview, and I can be corrected because Ms. Allen has done that in the past without any difficulty.
Oh, well, I went to
On
that
this,
commissioners
I-
meeting and I presented similar information.
Mhm.
And what came of it was they're going to get a marine boat patrol and they're going to need to do a vessel traffic study. They're going to have to cite all the accidents and the death. They're going to have to write at least 6 months worth of uniform boating citations. They're going to have to produce their methodology and all these things I can help them with my background in research when I was studying my doctorate. And I'd be more than happy to throw myself in it. But as a member of this board, I tried to do this through the manatees
I got that.
and no one cared.
I understand that.
The
But-
FWC, it's not that they didn't care.
No.
They were not, let's say, this got them more hyped up than anything else. Now, I've pointed out this business about the blind corners and safety of people and canoers and people that enjoy the intercoastal. And I'm starting to get some reaction, which I've just got an email that I put on your desk from Thomas Arrington, and I'll let you read that on your own time. And let's get that Marine Patrol boat going. And we can also help with the manatee situation that come to my backyard. They go to Bel Air, they go to Belido, they're all over the place. And they live over at the sanctuaries because I took a little drive on Jenny's boat not that long ago, and I see their habitat.
Ms. Chapelier, I'm not disputing your intentions. I'm suggesting to you that under 2.140 of our powers and duties of our board,
Right?
we have paragraph G, assist the town commission upon the commission's request
Mm-hmm.
with items and issues associated with waterways within the corporate limits of the town, including boat wakes, manatee protection, and mangroves. We do not have a commission request. If you want to make a recommendation that we have a commission request to go further into this topic, I have no problem at all with it. But I am not going to go beyond the boundaries of what our powers and duties are.
Got it.
Absent their approval. Now, I do understand you're concerned about this, and I'm very well aware of the fact that you're very, involved in the idea of slowing down boat traffic, and I appreciate that. And I brought up at different meetings, I think at the last meeting, that we still have issues, and the commission is going to run into issues regarding who controls the canal. Because unlike other cities like Delray and Boca Raton, which are on both sides of the canal, we're only on one side of the canal.
Right.
So any ordinance that Highland Beach wishes to promote, whether it's an issue regarding safety or for speed control, is going to have to meet with and respond with Boca Raton and Boca Raton's area, and
Okay.
Delray if it's appropriate in Delray's purview.
Okay.
So, and I have no problem at all. So why don't we, as I said, instead of putting all the energy into trying to enforce or try to get something out, let's make a recommendation that the commission consider the idea of empowering us to look into this issue from the perspective of manatee protection or mangrove protection or some other thing, which basically would be the Natural Resource Protection Advisory Board's purview. Am I wrong, Ms. Allen?
Right. Actually, I would love to add to this, and I was planning on adding to that conversation. At the September 21st Town Commission meeting, Ms. Chapelier had made a presentation. After her presentation, right, it was about the reduction of boat speed. I had gone up to the dais here, and I asked the board, because the reduction of boat speed right is outside the parameters of what the board's powers and duties are. So I specifically asked them if it was okay, because you had provided some information, I believe, to the town manager to forward to the board. But because it was about reduction of boating speed outside the board's parameters, we held off on forwarding that to the board until we got, direction from the commission to do so. Now, at that meeting they talked about possibly moving forward the Marine Patrol. I did discuss this whole situation with the town manager. Now, I know I was going to actually inform the board that at the October 19th Town Commission meeting, the town's police chief, Chief Hartman, gave a great presentation on this Marine Patrol unit, it looks like that's the path that the Town Commission is going to go. Rather than trying to reduce the boat speed, they felt it may be a more resourceful approach to go actually have a boat out there. Right. So at the September 21st meeting, when Ms. Chaparrier gave her presentation, the commission basically said in a nutshell, you know what, please don't pass your information on to the board. We're going to go down this path of moving forward with a marine boat, and staff, specifically the police chief, the police department, will be working on that project. Now, I did discuss with the town manager about the information that, the different attachments he wanted us to provide to the board today. The town manager was fine with, giving the board the attachments. However, he did indicate that it's not for review for a specific recommendation to the town commission, because, as I said, they've already chosen to go down the path of a marine patrol boat rather than the reduction of speed. So really, I think all this information you're giving is, helpful. It gives perspective.
So I'm just letting you all know what my research has been. I've spent over a year working on this, and this is the crux of it.
I
It's
appreciate
the crux. That's all. I'm just letting you guys know, this is it in a nutshell.
Listen, if we could get a boat out there writing citations,
That's what we do.
that would be the first step. Because if
That
you
is
can
the
show
first
that
step.
you have all these speeding boats, then you may be able to go and.
But it's not just
the next
speeding
step.
boats, the wakes. Owners are responsible, operators are responsible for their own wakes.
Well, what does that even mean?
That means that if my boat, my trawler goes 20 miles an hour and I'm rip roaring through the hood and I am destroying boats along the way, they could report me. Now, if the Marine Patrol boat sees me, he can write me a ticket because my wake is not, you are responsible for your wake. Let's say, for example, you're going down there in Coastal in Fort Lauderdale, you're going fast, you're allowed to, and one of those BK Marine things go by, one of those barges. I'm not supposed to go fast. I have to slow down, because if I cause any damage to that barge or somebody flips overboard and dies, I am responsible for my wake
And that's
legally.
true for any boat.
Any
Any
boat.
boat that's near you,
Any
you can't have
boat.
a big wake.
You are responsible for your wake.
Okay.
Now,
Okay.
manatees, I've seen dead manatees
Well-
going down the intercoastal.
Let me help you out here for a moment,
Okay.
if you don't mind. I'm sorry to interrupt the conversation.
No,
to
this is
that
a
degree,
good
but this-
conversation we're
This is
having.
really important. We need to tie this into the powers we have.
Okay.
So the way we can tie this in is to make recommendations under 2.140C, which says we can review existing and proposed town ordinances which affect the environment. So my suggestion, if you want to be proactive about this and get this resolved, is to use the manatees as a key into this,
Right.
because they took the liberty of putting the specific provision of our powers and duties involving the sea turtle program, but they have no provision on this particular in this ordinance, actually the section 2.140 regarding our powers and duties. So what we can ask the commission to do is to consider in a recommendation that, in view of the fact that manatees are directly and disproportionately affected by boat wakes and boat speeding issues, and we have a significant amount of mangroves, that we have some type of an amendment to the ordinance or an inclusion in the ordinance, which I guess would be under section 5.1 involving boats and beaches, or some other, I don't know, where can we fit it, Ingrid? I don't know where it would go down, but are you the ordinance person that would
Well,
change?
I know the code fairly well. I mean, it's a very large code. I know the zoning code maybe a little bit more than other
You're
sections
being
of the
modest,
code.
Ingrid.
Yes.
Don't be modest.
The only reference to the code with regards to manatees is actually the reference with regards to the Natural Resources Board and your powers and duties. There's no section of the code that has any type of manatee regulation or any provisions like that.
Right.
So just wanted to make that clear. There's
So-
nothing, the code is silent.
Okay, so chapter 5 of the municipal code of Highland Beach is beaches and boats. And section 5.1 is parking of boats. And section 5.2 is reserved and it's about beach operations. And then 5.4, which is going to come up later on in a conversation, is relative to beaches. So we can make a recommendation to the board to consider, a new ordinance that would provide some type of relief to the manatees, or at least protect the mangroves and manatees by virtue of allowing for speeding in that area. And we have significant amounts of mangroves, I believe, in the center of town. I'm not mistaken. It's just to the south of the city hall. There's a significant amount of mangroves there. And I think there's other mangroves further up too that would be benefited by that. So if we make the recommendation, the commission can go forward with it and have the town manager look into what kind of an ordinance we could propose. But that would be the key into your
Okay,
conversation.
we had a Zoom meeting with the FWC with the town manager and some of these other people from the FWC and the biologist department. And they basically said that if we're going to do this, it's going to have to be reviewed all of Palm Beach County. In other words, the manatee changing for the manatees is a very long process. It's a very difficult process. There has to be grass studies. There has to be vessel studies, like traffic congestion. There has to be proof that there's manatees there. I've seen them, so I know they're there. They were kind of discouraging me. And they said, the people from the FWC and boating safety, they said, you might get better results with, right after the accident, they said, go for boating safety if you want this done.
And I'm perfectly fine.
We started the conversation about the manatees. I was all over the manatees.
That's just not our job.
I understand that. I clearly see that. My job right now is just to educate you guys on it's going to happen because they are getting a marine patrol boat and the manatees will benefit from this. And that's going to be great. But they got to do 6 months of citations and they got to compile the data all based on what I handed out. Okay. So I will continue with my manatee thing.
Yeah, again,
I will.
don't get me wrong about
No, I'm
this.
not upset.
I am not, I'm one of the boaters that was out there that was being blown away by wakes when I was out
Okay.
there.
Okay.
I mean, it's just a matter of necessity to realize that.
But
we have
if we could make a recommendation about slowing down the boats and tag in whatever it is that we
and we can,
could tag it in, yes, I would like that. And if they need my help, I'm really good at research and I've done a lot of research towards the manatee angle and the turtles. I get sea turtles all the time in my backyard too.
in the canal.
Well, I haven't seen one lately. In the summer, I was getting them in my backyard. Yep. Because John and I, we bought fish food and we're feeding all the little fishies in our dock. We have a green light and we get everything back there now. We've got snook, we've got snapper, a lot of catfish, some other fish that I don't know.
Sea hares. But the reality is, if you ever heard of one,
No,
you know what a sea hare is?
no,
Until you've seen one, you'd never believe it.
there's one that's upside down and it's yellow or orange and it looks like it's dead or it looks like trash.
It looks
But
like
it's a
trash.
fish.
It's almost like I can't describe it. It's a blob.
It is a blob. I
thought
love
it
that
wasn't
fish.
alive when I first saw it.
I
It was
love
alive.
that fish.
Anyway,
That's the
the
coolest
point-
fish.
I have no problem at all presuming that we can do something proactive here, but two things I want to suggest to you in the context of this. Number one, this presentation should be given to BOCA. And when you do that, please don't incorporate the National Resource Preservation Board into that because that would be inappropriate. But you can go as an individual citizen and a non-resident of BOCA and present it to them because they probably would need to be involved in the process. If BOCA and Highland Beach would cooperate,
Yeah.
and get together and have a cooperation agreement regarding the institution, FWC would probably roll over and give us more speed.
This is basically out of my hands. It belongs to the commissioners and Craig Hartman, our chief of police. I'm just feeding you guys information on where we are in terms of pursuing the slowing down. but that blind corner we've got them. We got 4 of them. I spotted them. And I told Thomas Harrington of the FWC, and he wrote me back this email, which I gave you a copy of. And basically he said, forget the blind corner for the moment. Let's do that first.
Well, and that's fine, but the reality is we can make a recommendation today. I'd like to I'm trying to make this board functional to the extent that we can actually get something out of it.
Okay.
Because unfortunately, for the last 2 years that I've been on the board, it's been very difficult to get anything really resolved. And I'm trying to publish that only in the sense that we're trying to do something that effectively helps the citizens of Highland Beach.
I
So
think
in order
it's going to help
do-
the wildlife tremendously if we get these boats slowed down.
Clearly. So.
And not only that, forget property damage to our docks. The fact that we have climate change and everybody's having to raise their seawalls up, they're not required to, but they better. It's just, there's so many factors here. There's wildlife, there's climate change, which is under our umbrella. And it ties into how fast those boats are going since the 90s. I mean, I bought my place in 86. I moved to DC in 2005. I came back 2 years ago, and I just can't believe what's going on back there. I predicted at that Zoom meeting that somebody was going to die. And I'm sorry I did, because someone did die within like 5 or 6 months of my prediction, just how crazy it is on the weekends. So I don't know if our Natural Preservation Board covers fatalities on the intercoastal, but
Well, what we do have is the power to make a recommendation for a change in an ordinance. And we do have chapter 5, which is beaches and boats. And we
Okay.
can make it, we can recommend to the commission that they seriously consider the prospect of using some type of ordinance to protect the mangroves and manatees that are associated with our
Okay.
town and within the boundaries of it.
If
Ms.
I may
Fallon?
interject, I believe state statute has protections for both mangroves and manatees. Keep in mind that it's the Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission that manages the waterways.
right.
So you have to be mindful that if you do an ordinance, how is it going to be implemented,
There it is.
enforced?
There's your application process. They'd want us to have a marine patrol to enforce it.
We're talking two different things here. What Chair Parks is referencing, if I'm understanding correctly, is to look at the town code of ordinances. That's
Yes.
different than this.
No, we don't have an ordinance for that
Correct.
right now.
That
I'm
is
trying to
correct.
get one is what I'm,
So there's two different things.
Right.
I'll let the board discuss and you can come up with. But I think you're talking
Listen,
about.
I
two
think we're
different
talking
things.
in circles here. The bottom line is we need the Marine Patrol boat to write citations.
Yes.
That's the first and only step that really needs to be taken.
That's
at this
it.
point.
That's
That'll help
number
the
one.
manatees, it'll help protect the
but while
property.
you're doing it, do a vessel congestion study, because you can count how many boats you see on Saturdays and Sundays. Start that, because that's
I
part
think
of the
number
report.
citations will be a good start.
Oh, yeah. We're using the Hallandale model. That's what the commissioners were telling me when I was here the last time. There's something called the Hallandale model. There's the Jupiter Narrows model, which is no good, because they did a petition. The town did a petition over this area where there's a lot of, I can get into that. The Hallandale model is the way to go.
The
Okay.
Hallandale model probably is because Hallandale shares the intercoastal with Hollywood. So we're probably in a situation.
It was
I'm just
all-
telling you from logic.
Okay.
I mean, one of the reasons why Hallandale model might come up is because, if I'm not mistaken, Hallandale is on the Barrier Island side of of that particular area, and Hollywood
like
is
we
on the land side. So Hollywood would basically, Hallandale would have to cooperate in order to facilitate, and Hallandale eventually becomes
I read
both sides.
I read the rules. I didn't hear, there was nothing mentioned of Hollywood. I read it.
I didn't say Hollywood, I'm saying they share the
Oh, I
geographical
understand.
canal.
Yeah.
So, and there's issues because if you get into a situation where, for instance, let's say we could actually implement an ordinance of some sort, contrary to what we might be told otherwise.
Mhm.
There's a possibility there'd be a huge outcry from the residents in Boca Raton that have a significant number of boats on the other side of that canal that would be upset or at least, impacted by that ordinance. So there's got to be some type of a consistency, which is why FWC is the actual arbiter in this case.
Every time they pass one of these things, they get sued by a lobbyist group. But if we have 6 months worth of data, vessel traffic report, all the things that are in these papers that I gave you, then it'll go through. Because the Hallandale model or the Hallandale ruling is going through. Jupiter is not, because they didn't do it right.
Well, as I said, all we're here for today is to facilitate some type of recommendation to the commission to take some action to help our environment.
Okay.
So unless we can tie it into that particular, limited perspective at this moment, there's nothing else we can do. As much as this is important information, and I'm glad you brought it to the attention of the board and the public, hopefully, it's a situation where we really don't have any authority to make recommendations
Okay.
regarding speed control or anything else that would directly affect the waterways. We can make recommendations to the town to institute ordinances to protect areas of the town or situations that occur. Now, the town has mangroves, and the town certainly has a population, I presume, of manatees. As a matter of fact, one of the questions I was going to ask you, because I believe you're a biologist, or a biology teacher.
Yeah.
How do we assess the manatee population?
Well, I would contact Michelle, I forget her last name, in the FWC. She's the biologist. We got to get her interested in coming down here and doing a count. They would want a seagrass survey. There's many aspects of it.
So who does this?
FWC.
So how do we get FWC to do
Oh,
this?
and then they want us to hire someone. There is money involved. I think $40,000, what I heard, to do some kind of seagrass study. I know.
That's going to be, and that's going to be a matter of expense,
I
which the
know.
commission may or may not want to undertake.
That's why they said, use the boater safety. You've had a death, you've had accidents.
But
You
you're-
want your manatee saved? Do the boater safety because it'll pass.
You're trying to do an in run around what actually we can do.
I understand what you're saying. This committee or this board is only about the natural resources.
Mhm.
I get it. I get it.
To be honest with you, I consider the waterways to be a natural resource.
Me too.
But the reality is it's not necessarily looked upon that way. And there's also, as Ms. Allen has
It's part of our
pointed out-
environment.
Yeah, but it's unfortunate. You're absolutely
The
correct.
Corps of
So
Engineers owns it.
Hmm?
Corps of Engineers actually own the waterway.
They own the intercoastal?
Yeah.
Okay.
And
How
the
about using them?
FWC regulates it for them.
Well, I don't know, as I said, what we can do besides make a recommendation.
Okay.
I just don't want to,
I just wanted you to know that I'm staying on top of this. And if I'm needed either by the commissioners or this board, I'm here to help.
I'm willing to
in
make a
many ways.
recommendation right now that the board, that the commission, consider a new ordinance which would protect the manatees and mangroves directly. I don't see any reason
Fantastic.
why we should have rules and regulations on beaches and rules and regulations on parking of boats and so on, and not have, and this is chapter 5 I'm referring to, the MENA code, that we can't have a rule and regulation which basically states that any property that's adjacent to mangroves or in a situation where they have a population of manatees doesn't take extra care to make sure that none of their residents or the boats that are parked there damage, hurt, or destroy these properties.
Absolutely.
And do something about it. But Ms. Allen's looking at me cross-eyed over there. So
Uh-oh.
you don't want that. You don't think the ordinance is going to work?
I'm not looking at you cross-eyed.
No, I'm only kidding about
Yeah,
that.
no, I know.
Apologizing. But
So, yeah,
go ahead.
please do that.
Yeah, so protect manatee. Okay, I'm just looking again at the powers and duties, and it says under 2-140C, it says review existing and proposed town ordinances. So
Correct.
nothing's existing right now with regards to manatees. And there's nothing before the commission that is proposed that would be applicable for you to review, a proposed ordinance that may move forward to public hearing. If you want to make, you want to make the recommendation, I would suggest that maybe one of the board members do some research to see if other municipalities currently have ordinance with regards to protection of mangroves and manatees. That may be something that the board might want to consider.
I'll look into it.
Excuse me one second. I'm going to dispute that. Section 5.1, parking the boats, opens the door up to us reviewing the existing ordinance. If they can make an ordinance 5.1 of parking the boats, and I'll read it out loud if necessary, no boat shall be parked upon land visible from any public road within the town and so on, then we certainly can make an ordinance. We can ask them to have some type of ordinance regarding docking of boats or the management of boats. as it affects areas adjacent to manatees or manatee populations or mangrove populations. So insofar as.
What does parking a boat have to do with
I don't,
manatees?
it's just it's an inroad that they gave us in this municipal code. The code basically in chapter 5 allows it. I'm not, as I said to you, if you want a recommendation, that's the type of recommendation you can make.
Okay.
As far as anything else concerning this particular matter involving speed or the boat, that's entirely outside of the purview of our board. And we're really not empowered, at least so far as I know now, to do anything more than simply listen to the presentation and be appreciative of the fact that it's a concern. But the reality is we really can't be involved.
My
So-
last slide, Manatee. Highland Beach Marine Patrol is needed to let boaters know that we are serious when it comes to boater safety and manatee protection. There it is.
No problem at all. But that's your key.
That
in
is,
this
that was
manatee.
that's it. That's how it ties to us.
So
in
what
my
kind of
opinion.
recommendation do you want to propose?
Okay, that FWC takes our,
No, recommendation is to the board, to the
to the,
commission.
to the commission, to the commission.
Yes.
Okay, what? That we have this Marine Patrol boat. I mean, if there's any doubt it's not going to happen, they need to do it. And they should provide supportive information to us, citation data, vessel traffic study, safety issues, deaths, accidents, and manatees. What we observe, I'll work with the FWC biology department and figure out what she wants. I'll start over again with the manatees and the sea turtles and get off the boater safety and let Chief Hartman handle that.
Okay, given the most liberal interpretation of our powers and duties, I'm going to recommend that the commission consider the board as recommended, that it goes further down the road of protection for the manatee population and for property in Highland Beach, which is adjacent to the canals, by regulating the speed of boats on our canals at this time using a Marine Patrol boat. Do I have that's my motion. Do I have a second on that?
I'm sorry, can you reiterate
I knew you were going to do
the
that to
motion?
Oh, goodness.
Okay, the recommendation is that the commission consider expanding the ordinances of a town or take steps toward providing a Marine Patrol vessel of some sort to protect the speed limits that are currently in place on the intercoastal and regulate the traffic on the intercoastal
And the damage caused by
in order
boat
to
wakes.
protect the manatee population that are associated with our town.
And there's also damage caused by boat wakes
We got to keep it simple.
to the mangroves. And
This is not my fault.
Sorry.
Ms. Thompson.
There's a lot there.
I think
Shall
it
I
would
say it
be,
again? Okay. The recommend. we
How
have to
about
make-
what I
all
wrote
let's-
right there?
Ms. Shepherd, yeah, recommendations from this board have to be in a manner which can be constructed to the board, so the commission can understand and act on them. So what I'm trying to get across here is this recommendation, motion, whatever you prefer to call it, is that the commission seriously consider or emphasize the consideration of Marine Patrol vessels or some type of a boat to implement a program which would protect manatee populations and mangrove populations by slowing down traffic on the intercoastal. Is that fair? Is that okay?
That sounds good.
Do I have a second? I have a second.
Chapelier
Can we all vote on
seconds.
this? Do we have a yes vote on this?
Yes.
Yes. Ms. Matherman?
yes.
Thank you. Could be
No,
unanimous approval.
I think that the commission is already discussing this marine vessel, and I don't know that we need to bring it up to them again.
That's correct. If I could add to that, as I mentioned earlier, this information that Ms. Chapelier has provided with regards to the reduction of boat speed, it was okay for Ms. Chapelier to provide the information to the board, but I have clear direction that you're not supposed to review it in terms of making a recommendation. The commission is moving down the path once again to get a Marine Patrol boat. So just want to make that clear.
Okay, recommendation stands on the record. Thank you. Let's move on now. What's the next topic of comment? Who else is making a report today? Did you have something you want to report on, Jenny? No? Okay. Then it's my, well, I guess not my turn. So much. Thank you very much for the presentation, Ms. Chappell. It's very
You are
excellent.
quite welcome.
Well done. I'm sorry that it wasn't necessarily received, as well as it could have been, but we're limited by what we can and can't do here today. All right. So let's think
Before
that
you move on, Mr. Parks, can I clarify your motion, just for the record?
I want, the motion, the recommendation was made for the record. We'll
Yeah,
discuss
do you
the
mind
law.
if I reiterate what I have?
By all means.
Okay, to consider expanding the ordinance that would protect the manatees and mangroves with the inclusion of a marine patrol unit slowing down traffic on the intercoastal, what are
That's
we?
fine. Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
So it's two parts. Okay. I think we've covered the assigned task provision of it. And we can go on now to new business, which is discussion of the board projects regarding the survey of beaches. And I'm referring this to Ms. Allen to open the conversation. Ms. Allen? 9A.
Yes, so as I indicate on page 22 in your agenda memorandum, at the September 21st Town Commission meeting, Commissioner Gossett-Simon had noted on the record that Chair Parks had previously discovered that the town of Highland Beach was not included in a survey of beaches that was either conducted at the state or county level, and that the commission wanted the board to pick up on that initiative. And as I mentioned earlier in the meeting, we looked at previous board meetings to see if there was any data handouts relative to this survey of beaches. I don't know if that's the correct terminology. We couldn't find anything, so that's why in the memorandum, we went ahead and suggested that the chair provide the board information on this issue accordingly.
No problem. Thank you. Okay, in that regard, the conversation that the commission was having and what Commissioner Gossett-Simon brought up was relative to the fact that our erosion control line doesn't exist along the coast of Highland Beach. Now, to be simplifying the matter, we have what's called the Laban System, Labins, which basically is a special system set up by the state of Florida that surveys all 800 miles of our beaches all around the state. Laban's basically reflects, as a result of that survey or that system, the erosion control line, the construction, coastal construct. Again, I don't want to complicate the matter, but there are certain specific areas where you can build, which is called the coastal construction line. There's also the mean high water marks, low tide watermarks, and there's also what's called an erosion control line. The erosion control line, for the most part, is my understanding from the engineer, from the surveyor that works for Laban, is consistent with the high tide mark or the mean high water mark. Apparently, what he and I did actually talk to Mr. Evers earlier today, as a matter of fact, just to verify my information. But Laban's basically reflects on its map system, which I don't have today for the board to look at, that there is no erosion control line that runs along the coast of Highland Beach. And what we speculated might have happened was because Highland Beach is not a high-risk beach, because Highland Beach does not have the destruction and problems that came from Hurricane Wilma in 2005 and Sandy in 2012, there was no justification or need for it, or no one took it upon themselves to put the erosion control line in place. Delray Beach, as an example, has had a significant number of projects which basically involve beach renourishment and restoration. So it's very likely that they had to have done the surveys in order to facilitate the permits to get their beach projects completed. The same thing goes for Boca Raton. So if you look at a map, which I unfortunately can't show you because it's a very complicated system, Labans, you'll see that the erosion control line ends at Spanish River Park, just to the south of us, and it begins again as it gets to Delray, just to the north of us. So we don't have what amounts to being an erosion control line. Now you might ask, why does that matter? Well, for one thing, we're in a situation where there's a question which is going to come up in a conversation which is really relevant to the dune management restoration project, that what is and what is not private beach is a very great concern to this town. And what I've made comments upon, and I sent out a handout to everybody on the board and asked the town to prepare a PowerPoint or put a PowerPoint up there, is in regards to the beach. So the absence of this erosion control line is by itself not of a great concern, But in order to get an erosion control line, we'd have to work out an arrangement and some type of financial obligation with the state of Florida and with a surveyor who would then do the actual background research and work and put it in place. That would then give us what amounts to being a specific line or an area where the private homeowners, which basically border the actual ocean in our community, would then have, this is for the PowerPoint, thank you. Would then have the opportunity, the obligation of penciling in this erosion control line. Beaches are the greatest concern we have as the Natural Resource Advisory Board. It is the largest natural resource we have anything to do with in this board, and the town, of course, is the largest natural resource the town has. Protecting it is a great concern to us. So what I had intoned to Commissioner Gosek-Seidman was that this erosion control line is missing because we haven't gone to the trouble of actually asking for one. Apparently that's the case. And we don't have one on a map. So we can't have any definitive idea as to where the mean high tide watermark is as it stands right now. Why is this an issue again at all? Because homeowners who border the actual coast are not happy entirely with the way things are being managed on the beach. But the fact that there are private property issues versus public access issue and rights is a great concern to us. So my perspective on this basically was to bring to the board's attention and to bring to the commission's attention indirectly, that this town has a significant number of easements which are included in the package that was sent out to you by me or given to you at the beginning of this meeting. And these easements basically, I don't think, Ms. Thompson, we didn't put these any of these documents on the screen, right? The only on the screen is the Sea Grant, correct?
Only the PowerPoint you sent me?
The PowerPoint only, correct?
Yes.
Okay, good. Thank you. So what I prepared today, so we have a better understanding, and again, I'm trying to educate not just the board, but the public that hopefully is watching to some degree, what we can and can't do and what our responsibilities are. So in front of you right now is an article that I took from the University of Florida, which basically it's not in a packet, I don't believe. It should have been in the packet actually. Is there? Okay. So the UF article didn't get to me or something. Give me 1 second. Okay. You notice from the actual article, which is again written, I pulled this out of the system back in January in concert with the conversation I had with the commission on a meeting. Who owns the beach is a big concern here. And one of the problems we're having is the beachfront property owners basically have rights, as do the users of the beach. And one of the concerns the commission has always seemed to have and have raised, and town's attorney has raised, is that private property requires a certain degree of consideration. But what I brought to your attention today, besides the article itself, is that public use and public rights conflict with private rights, but they can also work in concert. And the state of Florida has taken it upon itself to allow for private rights to be utilized by the actual individuals who have access to the beach. We would not be town of Highland Beach if we didn't have access for most of our residents. And most of our residents do not, unfortunately, own property on the beach itself. So this article basically begins with an overall summary of who owns the beach and why that's important. And what I've developed in the context of this meeting today is a response to our obligations to consider dune restoration and beach preservation, what we can and we can't do. The problems have been in the past that we can't regulate the beach because we have private property issues. And I take issue with that personally, and only as a resident, because I believe that if you're given the right to use the beach, you're given the responsibility of taking care of the beach. And that's obviously a matter which the town attorney is going to have to address sometime in the future. And we're going to recommend, or I'm going to make a recommendation that we have more of an investigation in that. But what I've included in your packet from personally today, which you'll see, is what's called an easement. And the easement basically in this particular case is the one which affects Bellito Isle. Bellito Isle is where Commissioner Seidman lives, and which a significant stretch of land in front of what amounts to being Ocean Place Estates on the east side of A1A, as well as several other homes. And if you notice this particular easement, which is attached to my handout, the easement itself says in no uncertain terms that back on May 1st of 1958, there was an obligation given to anyone who owns property on the east side of A1A in this case, and this is the parcel which has been allocated, to give absolute discretion to anyone who lives in Bellito Isle the right to utilize and go on the beach. Now, we can infer from that that there's also a public right beyond just the Bellito Isle residents, because it says in the actual context of the easement that for valuable consideration, people can use the beach to travel across over and through the actual private properties to utilize the water and to stay on the sand. This is a very significant easement because basically it echoes the other easements that were also allocated for the properties that are along A1A on the east side of the road that effectively have the rights and private property interests in the beach. So what I brought to the board, I'm bringing to the board's attention is, and what I'm indirectly bringing to the commission's attention in this conversation, is that we have obligations to go along with the easement. And although we have no right to go on to private property normally to do anything that would affect or be a detriment to the private property owners, we have obligations to clean up behind our citizens. And we have no facility to do that because we have no staff that goes onto the beach to clean it. We have no machinery and no access points where we can get to the actual beach. That's one of the biggest problems we have as a town. And we basically have a limited amount of involvement in terms of the beach itself now. In a prior conversation, I think Ms. Matherman brought up the fact that it's private property and they're responsible for cleaning it. Well, that's correct. But my analysis and my evaluation of the article says that we also have obligations. And this is, again, this is just an overview of what's going on in Florida. And it basically tells us where the beach users are or not available and where is available to the public. The diagram you're looking at now is just a typical scenario of what a dune would be like on the, I guess, the land side of the beachfront properties and the water line. The area in the middle, which obviously is the beach we all utilize, is public access property. And I don't believe that they probably, if we look back in time and we do an analysis of all the areas along the beach, the 2.88 miles of beach we control in the town, or which is the town there is access points to every single area of that particular beach. And that's relevant to the conversation of what we can do to take care of it and what we can do to implement what amounts to being strategies to avoid it being ruined. One of those strategies that comes up in conversation is how do we actually fix the beach, or how do we actually take care of the shoreline and the dunes? And I think, and Ms. Allen can correct me on this, the commission recommended that we look further into the dune issue. Am I right?
It's not so much a dune issue, but it's a project on the strategic priorities plan.
Okay. So now we have to now the conversation becomes one of what can we really do if the dunes are all controlled by the private property owners that are adjacent to the dunes or own the dunes themselves as part of their land rights? And the answer to that question comes up again from a point of view of a usage situation. What do we do to make a consistent approach to the dunes for everyone to follow? And the article again, which I brought to the attention of the board, indicates that we have access points and that we are right to, private property and public property can be here. You can see from the diagram, by the way, and I'll go back to it for 1 minute, the slice of land that we're entitled to theoretically have as part of the public is between the mean high tide waterline and the mean low tide waterline, which in this case, as per the diagram, is tiny. But the reality is the easements which are here and the easements I've evaluated in the context of reviewing this in the past indicate that we're entitled to actually use the beach right up to the dune lines. So inconsistent with this particular diagram, we actually have the right, in certain cases at least that I've seen, and this is in front of Ocean Place Estates, that the public and the individuals who are in the public domain can go on the beach and use the beach to the extent they need to up until the actual dunes, but we don't have the right to the dune areas. So what I'm going to suggest the board consider is a recommendation that we have a consistent approach to what the dunes should be planted with. And to do that, we have to adopt what amounts to be the report, which Ms. Allen was kind enough to attach to our resources today that was promoted by a gentleman who was working for, I think, Highland Beach Shores, am I right?
No, the name of the company is Green Coast Consulting. He actually presented to the Highland Beach Shores and Advisory Board. That was the previous name of the board.
Wasn't this a gentleman that was actually a volunteer, or was this an actual, did we actually solicit this report?
I'm not sure. I wasn't here back in 2018. I'm not sure how it came about. I know there were some previous board members that had referenced this particular presentation. I don't know much about the history. I don't know about that.
Well, over the years, there've been a number of different companies that have evaluated the condition of our beach. CPE is one of them that did it back in 2013. That's also attached in your materials today. And they were, CPE stands for Consulting, I'm sorry, Coastal Planning and Engineering, which, by the way, I understand now is a new company.
Yeah, I checked real quick before our meeting. It's, I think, associated with CB&I and
They were bought out a couple of times.
yeah, I think they're part of a larger, I think it's CBI is what I was able to find.
I guess my point is, in order to look at this project that that the commission has asked us to be involved in, we have to look at the totality of our involvement and what the town can and can't do. And bearing in mind that I've been on the board now for about 2 years, it seems to be a prevailing comment coming from the commission that because it's private property, we're limited to what we can and can't do. And then my response to that is, well, what are we supposed to do for the public that basically would give the public the idea that they can take care of the beach, like our beach bucket project was, and facilitate what amounts to being an improvement to the beach? The dunes are simply a means of keeping the property behind the dunes safe and secure. And also they break the actual wave action that facilitates more of a beach for us. From the CPE report that's attached to this package, we're actually losing a significant amount of beach on the south end of the town, and we're gaining some on the north end of the town as a result of the activities of Delray in terms of their beach nourishment projects. This is not easily found, by the way. This report's over almost 100 pages as far as I remember. And it goes into great detail as to what they recommend and why they feel that this isn't right or this was not appropriate. But just to boil it down and summarize it for the benefit of the public and for our work today, they recommended in 2013 that we undertake permitting a project that would have cost $9.5 million. It would have resulted in dredging what they call sand pits off the coast of Highland Beach and drawing the sand from the sand pits onto our beach to expand it. And what we learned as a result of watching storms come through our town in the last 10 years or 15 years is that the situation has never helped Delray or Boca Raton completely resolve it. It's an ongoing and continuous source of expense for those towns. And unfortunately for them, it's not providing any formal or continuous results. So what my recommendations were for this board to look over and look into other aspects of it. And in doing the research on shoreline erosion and control, I came up with a synopsis for you just to look at the alternative devices and procedures. And it goes down a list of what we can and can't do. And the board has I guess we're in a position to recommend one way or the other what the commission consider in regards to this. At this point, I believe that the real focus of what the commission would like us to do is to recommend vegetation or some other manner of, stabilizing the dune system that's currently on the beach. And in order to do that, we have to implement what amounts to being, or I'm recommending we implement or recommend the commission implement a consistent approach to that. And the reason why I believe it'll work, even though it's private property, is because despite the fact that it's private property, if one homeowner does not facilitate this type of work and does not take steps toward planting seagrass or sea grape or whatever material you as a board can come up with in terms of stabilization, sea oats, whatever, yeah. There's no way that the neighbor next to them, which doesn't do this, is going to help the situation. And I would make this akin to if we have a situation where we share a common area along A1A that's grass and someone decides not to take care of their lawn, it's going to create havoc for those individuals that take care of their grass. And I don't know whether that's going to fly or not. We'll see, but that's the best we can do as a commission. I'm sorry, as a board recommending to the commission activity. If they, obviously there's been a reluctance upon the part of the commission to impose anything on property owners. And I believe it's actually in one of the evaluations that was shared with us in the past. But the reality is, if we don't come up with some type of a mechanism, make them understand that number one, it's in their best interest because it stabilizes their own land. And number two, if they don't have a consistent approach to it, if one homeowner puts one type of vegetation in, the other homeowner decides to only plant grass or whatever else is necessary to facilitate their idea of proper beachfront access, it's going to create problems. So I'm going to leave it at the end of this discussion to the board to make some recommendations, because we need to put in place some type of information. And what I've given you in a handout is just an excerpt from a very long book, which basically is a shoreline erosion control manifesto from these gentlemen whose names are Cooper and Pikely. This book is not a new book or anything like that. It goes back, I don't know, 15, 20 years or whatever. And they broke down what does and doesn't work. And if you look down the list of what they have for alternative devices and procedures to protect and restore the sea line, it discusses everything from prefabricated seawalls to erosion mitigation devices to specific, fish groins and all kinds of structures you could build along the coast to facilitate building a better coastline for ourselves. All of these things cost significant amounts of money and create what amounts to being problems for our environment in other ways, namely sea turtles. So I guess I'm kind of migrating here, but I just wanted to bring to the board's attention that all of these items and all these devices exist, but they come with their own set of problems. And so also does the seagrass implementation or the actual dune restoration. I don't know. I'm not a biologist, and I don't have the capacity to give you information. I believe some of our board members have a lot of biological background on this, science background on this. But whatever recommendation we make should take into consideration the wildlife that may or may not like or coexist with some of the plants. I don't know whether we're all aware of the fact we have red fox, we have sea turtles, we have all kinds of egrets and birds, and we want to encourage this. And that's basically the thrust of my conversation regarding the dune restoration aspect of it. As far as the beach is concerned, I'm shocked and appalled at the manner in which the beach is handled, because I think leaving the experience of beach raking to several different companies who can, at the request or of the behest rather of the associations and homeowners, do as much or as little as they choose to do is not a good idea. And I brought to the board's attention, which is why I had the information on Chapter 5, the beach raking is controlled to some degree already under an ordinance. If you refer to, I think at the end of the chapter, I had you highlight 5.10, beach rakers are required to place identification and phone numbers on their tractors and register with the town. I believe we can recommend to the town logistically that they can go beyond that registration and ask the actual beach rakers to have some type of consistency in the manner in which they approach their work, and also use equipment that's appropriate for their work so as to provide the relief we need to move things that are problematic for our beach off the beach. And for all those who don't know about what's going on in Highland Beach, the beach rakers, as far as I know right now, are using old equipment, which is why I asked for pictures of what they are using. And they're literally just burying the garbage. And burying garbage only results in one thing, burying the problem temporarily, because the garbage comes back up. And if you happen to be on the beach and you happen to step on glass that happens to be buried, you're just as burned as you were if you were on top of the beach. So I'm particularly appalled by the idea that they can simply get away with this, especially with the fact that there are significant improvements in technology that would give them the opportunity to screen the actual material and take it away. Now, the arguments have been in the past, and I hate to keep talking, and I hope you permit me on this, that they can't move it off the beach because we have no access points. we have a limited amount of access points. But that argument falls on its face because they have to move their tractors off the beach somewhere.
So
And
where
they
do
have
they
to
do
bring
it?
sleds with them doing that.
Where do they go?
Where do they move them off? I think they come in on, I don't know, Ingrid might be able to help us on that. No?
I don't know, sorry.
It has to be Del Rey or Spanish River Park. Spanish River Park has public access points and they can roll in from there. I've seen it off the road anyway, and Boca Raton probably is pretty liberal about that. But one way or the other, the manner in which they're doing their work right now, if anyone's been out there in the, not the crack of dawn, you're the crack of dawn person. Are they still out there with the big rakes behind their vehicles?
I haven't seen them in a while. I don't know what time they're coming right now.
It's not the crack of dawn.
No.
I witnessed them at any time between 9:30, 11:30, 12. Like they're there at different times of the day from my experience.
And they're just using plain rakes right now, so.
They're using the plane rigs and the
And
manner that you
buried.
described at the previous meeting. I have not personally witnessed them burying it, but just cleaning up from what does get picked up gets picked up. But again, I would assess or. put
No,
out
I
there
think
that that's
part of
something
that we would have
meeting that
to-
The commission has invited us to, that some of those areas will be addressed and we would have that opportunity to have direct questions for those individuals. Is that correct? Is what we talked about earlier.
And it really comes down to a monetary issue because right now the beach rakers are being paid by different associations and individual homeowners. And without the town stepping into the role of being any kind of a supervisory board, you have something else you want to add? Okay, we're not really in any, unless the town steps up and says, you can only use this type of equipment, or you can only manage this. The fallback conversation is going to be, well, the DEP, Department of Environmental Protection, says that we can bury the material. And that's been the consistent argument the town has raised in the last 2 years that I've been on the board. That they have permission or some type of a friendly understanding that because of the fact that we have limited access to our beaches, that they're entitled to bury the material because they can't move it off the beach. Clear that the fact remains from the limited research I did so far is that there are significant improvements in technology that could give us the opportunity to make them sift the material and not put all of it into the ground in various points. This conversation, by the way, just so all you all privy to this, came as a result of a conversation that was brought to my attention by Robert Paddock, who owns one of the properties across the street, and basically was extraordinarily upset that his neighbors on both sides had chosen companies to bury garbage and basically tread on and ruin his beachscape. Mr. Paddock had a justification for being upset about that because I thought burying garbage and if I own the beach, I wouldn't want someone burying garbage on it. And unfortunately for him, it's a situation where he is, he's basically blocked in on both sides by these beach rakers. I'm sorry, by these organizations. In one case, it's an association. The other one, it's the Evolution of Boxwood Terrace, I believe, which is now a 6-unit townhouse community. All things considered, aside from his personal concerns about this, beach raking is definitely an issue, and we keep skating it. And I'd like to recommend that the commission seriously consider that we take a more head-on approach to it and give more control and take more control over what they can and can't do. And that's a recommendation I'm going to make in the sense of a motion from this board. But I want to hear from all of you as to what your thoughts are on this.
I agree with that. I think maybe Highland Beach should be raking the entire beach and it should just go to the taxpayers for them to pay for it. Why are the people that live on the beach the only ones that have to pay for it?
Really?
Yeah,
Why shouldn't they pay for it?
well, we use the beach. I mean,
Right.
why should it only be them?
That's the argument.
More money, more taxes?
How much
Yes.
more could it be?
We're getting a fire thing over here.
Can I ask a clarifying question, Amy? When you say those who live on the beach, but can we clarify, it was my understanding or maybe misinterpreted that all associations who have access to the beach are assisting and paying for it. That was a previous comment and that was my personal interpretation. So
I
that
think-
would include even Highland Beach Club. I don't have, but I have the easement, so it's guaranteed in my residence there. But so Highland Beach Club, since we are not positioned or do not have a beach club like Coronado or Toscana, we don't contribute at all to that cleanup. cleaning. That's your understanding.
That's my understanding. I mean, I don't think I contribute at all.
No, we don't.
Can
So-
we, is there anybody here who could clarify that before we go in circles around that one? Is it
And I
an
think that's
important
part of
thing?
the problem is, some of the homeowners don't hire the beach rakers and some do. So there's no consistency. There's no uniformity.
But another tax for the residents of Highland Beach?
Yes.
Why can't we get the money out of the existing associations also?
Well, we're not saying they pay taxes as well as we do. But why shouldn't the individuals that live beyond the beach on the west side of the road, we'll call it, not contribute to the actual cleaning of the beach, which they use and rely on as number one, a property value, number two, a recreation value, and number three, obviously an aesthetic value to this town. I realize they don't have the opportunity to live on the beach and they don't have the view other people have. But by the same token, as I pointed out in the easement I brought to your attention, we have the right to use the beach. So why should we not have the obligation to clean the beach? And I understand it's taxes. I understand it's a financial issue, but the reality is it doesn't make any sense to not be involved in the process, even though they're private beaches.
What does Gulfstream or Palm Beach do or some of
That's
the
a good
other?
question.
I'd be curious what they're doing and see what they do.
Why don't we make it one of your projects?
Okay, I was gonna get on the dune restoration. I was gonna do that.
Well, it's up to you. If you want to
That's
look
the
into
one.
that, that's fine.
That one interests me more.
Does anyone here want to call up other towns, basically, since we're being called upon by the commission to do independent research, which is fine? Can I have a volunteer to call, as you pointed out, Briny Breezes or any of the other towns to the Gulf Stream to the left, to the north and south of us? I know how Boca Raton handles it. So Boca Raton has a commercial system.
I want to do dune restoration.
Okay,
So Boca taxes every taxpayer.
every taxpayer pays for the beach.
Wow.
Well, remember, Boca has 3 parks on the beach too.
Thank goodness.
There's Palmetto Park, it's up by Palmetto, whatever they call that. They have the Red Reef, I think it's called Red Reef,
Mhm.
and they have Spanish River.
Yeah.
And there's not much private property on the Boca side that I know of. There's a couple of homes, but for the most part, Boca is a public beach. Or at least they're public, more so than us. And Delray is the same way. Delray has a few homes that are on the ocean side. I don't know what it'd be fun to find out what they're doing too, but Delray might clearly maintain their own beach. Whether they pay for the actual expense associated with the homes remains unknown. But it's a good question. And I'm sure the commission will be very happy to hear the answer to that before we make a recommendation to them to do anything about it. But I mean, doesn't it strike you as being irrational? I know the public is going to want to kill me for saying this, but I know that tax dollars are important to all of us, but absent having Highland Beach and absent having a pristine, beautiful beach, which we actually do have, regardless of what's going on out there, is our property values would drop. Our enjoyment of the area would significantly plummet, and we'd be in a situation where we have problems that we otherwise don't have. So yes, we may have to increase our budget by a couple of $100,000 a year, whatever it is, to facilitate this. I don't know what it would cost to beach rake the entire 2.8 miles. I do know that most municipalities that I researched out in California and other parts of the country all have specific ordinances and requirements for beach raking that go far beyond what we have here. So it makes no sense, considering the affluence of our community, that we have a lower priority on this.
Are you saying that, let's say I live here and I pay for raking, but my 2 neighbors don't? You're saying that raker will only do that one little section?
It's exactly what happens.
Really?
That's what Mr. Paddock's concern
Oh,
was.
okay.
Because he would not, no matter how Mr. Paddock was so inflamed by what they did on these 2 properties to the right and left of him, to the south and north of him, is that he was trying to block their access to the actual land in the middle. Because he owned, according to his assertion, he owns everything down to the water line, and the beach raker has to get from point A to point B, and they got to traverse his property. He was accepted.
And they won't clean it, or they won't?
Well, they just have no access. I mean, they come from, let's say they come from the south.
Right.
They can't get to the northern property without going across a portion of his land. And they're leaving huge, tire marks.
Yeah.
They, which by the way, I kind of agree with them on that. I mean, believe it or not, given the right type of equipment, including tractors that have soft tires and deflated tires, you can actually get a lot less of an impression on the beach. And I live near where Diane lives, and basically down by whatever
where
it's
you
called.
live.
What's it called now? 45. I keep thinking of it as
I know where you live.
Ocean. Is it 45 Ocean now?
45 motion.
45. I'm sorry. It forever will be the old name in my mind.
The ambassadors.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they basically, you know, they leave huge tracks,
No, I've seen that.
and they have no regard whatsoever for any of the. And by the way, they don't clean that beach. They actually traverse the beach to get to the areas in front of Ocean Place Estates.
You've convinced me.
Okay, well,
You've convinced me. You're
I want
right.
to convince the public to help us. And
Oh,
by
no,
the
we
way,
will. We
And I want to
will.
make a public comment. To anyone that happens to be listening out there who has any knowledge whatsoever about environmental matters involving beaches or personal information, or would like to come forward and help us, we significantly would need help and support from the community. We're trying our best to facilitate beach buckets, to facilitate individuals in the community cleaning up, but this has to be a complete effort from the entire community. And absent the actual cooperation of the community, it's not going to work. Now, your concern over taxes is justified. No one wants to pay more money. But personally speaking, as a homeowner, I will pay an extra $100, $200 a year, which I don't think it would be really
No, that's
realistically to facilitate someone taking better care of my beach. And the way it works out, the new equipment which they have, which is available at a significant expense, I'm sure, to these companies, which they don't want to use and they don't want to spend, will not only clean the beach better and actually sift the sand and get the garbage out of the beach and put it into a hopper in the truck or whatever, it also leaves a much nicer surface to begin with.
I've seen those tire tracks.
Yeah.
They're horrible.
I mean, we're not Santa Barbara, we're not like, you know, but some of the communities out in California have the same problems we do here. And they manifested a system where they have these prior property or side or not, they make the beaches look presentable to everybody. So I think that's important for us, but I'm looking for, you know, support and consistency on the board. What do you think,
So-
Diane?
I think that this is something that we should look into. My concern is that I don't know how many beach rakers there are. And if they're not willing to buy new equipment, they're just not going to clean our beaches at all.
Why don't we have our own raker?
Wow, that would be something for the town.
We're getting
planner
our
to
own
answer.
fire department. What could it possibly?
Are we getting, but again, I'll bring us back to the point of, are we getting ahead of ourselves when we've already been advised to attend the December 7th meeting at which the beach rakers will be present to answer questions?
Oh, that's true.
And where instead of, I don't know, why, who, what, where, all those questions possibly, hopefully would be answered. And in lack of that information at that time, when we can definitively say, we asked, we did not receive, so we can therefore make recommendations based on what we feel is best. But right now, I just feel like there's a lot of throwing stuff at the wall, hoping things will stick. So I would like to put forth the idea that, and I'm gonna back up because I feel like there's many, many, many different things that were brought out here, from starting with the Dune 90-page report, and then we went in back into the trash, the breaking and the buckets, and things were all cyclicking, because yes, they're all interrelated, but I would like to back up to even your proposal, Chairman, that somebody start looking into research, whether it's looking at other barrier island towns such as Gulfstream, Briny Breezes, and to how they engage in this. And if somebody or someone as a team or whatnot engage in this, they also agree that they will attend that December 7th meeting so that they can be not acting as out there and gathering information from other communities, but then supporting what their findings with what is presented and what questions are asked at that organized meeting with commission present. So at this point in time, I would still like to say, yes, I agree with you that somebody could go out and do that research, but to start continually moving forward when an opportunity has been presented for us to learn more so that we can put forth a very educated research base.
If we don't do a little research before the meeting, then we won't know what to ask them.
So it's today's date, as far as I know, is November 3rd. If we are moving forward here with agreeing to take on this responsibility as a task, I think we have more than enough time between now, whoever, and I'm happy to take that on as well. and do some of the research. I enjoy doing research myself, but I just feel like we were going in so many different directions at this point.
I think
I'd like to
that's a
start
great idea. I think we
funneling
should
into an
research,
actual action item.
Mhm.
find out what everybody else is doing and go from there. And go to the meeting and see what they have to say.
Well, I completely agree with you guys. This idea was I wanted to bring a conversation forward that would effectively give us some type of a parameter and move forward on this. And the tie into all the, by the way, Ginny, we haven't heard from you. Do you have any comments or questions?
No, I think it's a great idea. that We all look into in whatever way we can, what everybody else is doing. And
And come as,
I
again,
mean, I
educated
don't
individuals
under,
to that meeting that we were invited to, I think is a very smart
Yeah.
idea, whoever can.
Yeah.
I can be there. Like I can be at the meeting. I'm happy to do some research. If somebody would like to join me, I welcome that as well. I love collaborating.
I'll help you. We can split up the towns.
Well, now the tie-in on my end, at least, insofar as the recommendations are concerned. Given the fact that we're limited to what we can do here, we can review existing or proposed town ordinances that affect the environment. The town ordinance that I'm taking issue with right now that's being reviewed and may need some type of tailoring to some degree, or at least enforcement perhaps, is 5.9 involving littering. Because if you look at 5.9, which I put in your packet, it should have been brought to your attention, which basically is the town code ordinances. And you look at section C regarding private beaches, it specifically says that the owner of private property shall not allow trash, refuse, or debris to remain in his property for a period of time greater than 7 days. Sorry?
I said, aha.
Okay. So any such trash, refuse, or debris located on private property shall be properly disposed of. And there's a violation section below it. So what's not happening, and which the town can do something about, which we'd like to recommend the town commission consider, is having some type of code enforcement compliance officer survey the beach from time to time, maybe twice a week or something, walk the beach or ride the beach with some type of four-wheel drive. And if they find issues where people are not taking care of the beach, or there's obvious issues where they're ignoring their obligations, then cite them for it. And again, if they come back and argue that, well, the public is using our beach and this is the situation, I'm sorry, that's just the reality of life right now. We have an ordinance. It is 5.9 and it does say you have to take care of the beach. That's your responsibility as a private homeowner. My personal belief is that we owe them the obligation of helping them. But at the moment, under the circumstances we're currently facing, we have a situation where we take care of it. That's part of the obligation we have. And my concern is that in doing this, in performing this obligation, or at least in avoiding this, the problems, they're not going to be allowed to hire people to bury garbage on our beach, which is that's a tie into my entire argument regarding the use of the beach, who we are, and why the beach is important. The UF article goes to this issue and discusses liability issues associated with the actual use of the beach and how Florida has set up a system of laws which protect beachfront property owners from being liable for individuals using it. But by the same token, they still have responsibilities and the benefits and privileges of having beachfront property. And this is part of it. So I'd like to recommend to the board that we have some type of a compliance officer where we expand the obligations of our current compliance officer to walk the beach or do some type of evaluation of the beach so as to know what is or is not appropriately being done on that beach. Do I have a second on that recommendation?
Second,
Is Ms. Thompson, is it okay the way I stated it? Okay. So basically that's where I wanted to kind of conclude this particular aspect of it, but I'm really happy about getting help here because the idea is to bring to your attention some of the possibilities. And they go from trying to, facilitate help with what we have, what we can work with right now, and also facilitate access to the beach for everybody and make everyone responsible for taking care of it. If the public doesn't want to be involved, well, then the public ought to pay taxes to have someone else do it for them,
And again,
right?
I want to just bring attention that I will have to be leaving soon, but would like to make a comment if
Sure, go ahead.
permissible to individuals out there watching or reviewing minutes, therefore. I just would also like to put forth an example of what our community has chosen to do next door. I'm part of the social committee over there, and it's not just about getting together in the evenings and socially that way, but we're also sponsoring our first monthly beach walk this Saturday. We put it together and it's been very well received. I just want to share. Highland Beach Club will be having a monthly beach walk every first Saturday of the month. We get together, we meet at 8, we're gonna walk the beach. I tried to obtain buckets that were from the bucket trees, but that became a very circle of why they could not give them to us. And at this time, I understand that. I went and bought our own buckets and we're gonna be out there walking. So I would encourage, in addition to ordinances, I'm holding people responsible in that way. We can also look at it from a fellowship point of view of our responsibilities, and we could be a model for that. I'm happy to talk to anybody as to how we were able to engage our entire community to step up and participate in this once a month. And our first one will be this Saturday.
And it's a great initiative. I just want everyone to know that in the past experience I've had with the commission, and in light of comments that have been made to me by the town attorney, they're very hesitant to endorse any kind of public initiatives of this nature, because they're afraid that, number one, it brings liability to the town. And I'm just going to help you out because you're a member of the board. Maybe you weren't privy to this information. And number two, that they didn't feel that it's the town's obligation to do this, to have some kind of a program of this nature, because it would possibly create a, well, I think liability is the biggest issue. And again,
And
Mr.
so I
Labate.
just wanted to make that clear too, that it is for Highland Beach Club residents that we are taking on that responsibility, because we have liability as it pertains under our own association.
And
It's
that's
not
great.
open to the, I apologies, it's not open to the public to show up. I admire the trashy mermaids of Delray Beach who would like to go assist them, but this is a Highland Beach Club community. So if other communities can look at what they can, what is not permissible under their own liabilities, is their property manager or boards can assist, but it was approved by our board for us to do that as a community.
And I think it's a great idea. And I've suggested in the past that we make community service projects for kids. And I've been told that, oh God, no, you have to have, you're going to invite children on the beach, or you're going to invite, people from other towns to come to our beach or whatever. And I have all kinds of interesting remarks that have been made as a result of my suggestion, including someone actually thinking that I was inviting criminals to come to the beach. It's true, because community service comes along with penalties. And if you can fulfill your community service by taking care of a beach area, like they have on the wall, I mean, people own the rope, put up signs for the roads and so on, then that's a wonderful
It
thing.
was a great idea. I thought of that idea too and got shot down immediately, but I get it.
Even the reason,
The community service hours was a no-brainer, but
it just made,
not gonna
I literally told me, here, you're gonna have felons on the beach or
Yeah.
whatever, and no, we're not having felons on the beach. We were thinking about school kids that got in trouble in school, who have to come to the beach and spend 2 hours cleaning the beach up, which would be a phenomenal, nice activity for them to begin with. They probably would like it. And secondly, they get community service hours. And I got the biggest response back. I mean, I got people back, you're gonna have, criminals on our beach or whatever, or you're gonna invite this person or that person. Hey, I don't know. I don't think that way, but that's the way it was. Anyway, I don't want to belabor the point. I think we've gone, I know I went around, but the dune restoration, which I believe is one of the topics we were required to address, is going to require us to have some consistent approach to the dunes. And I'm not a horticulturist. I don't have the background in botany to be able to, evaluate what is or is not appropriate. But I do think that we have an obligation to get that information. So you were going to vote for the, so I guess the best thing to do is start off with whatever has been done by this other, I think it was your beach club, as a matter of fact, that solicited that report. The report that's part of this program, your Highland Beach Club, right? I think the report was done for them. But prepared for the Highland Beach Beaches and Shores Club. That's not you? Okay. Where is the Highland Beach Beaches and Shores Club?
If I recall correctly, I think that was the name of this board previously.
I
Yeah,
think you're correct.
and I believe it was sunset and this Natural Resources Board was.
Highland Beach Beaches and Shores Club? No, I don't think so.
That's correct. That board no longer exists.
That was a board?
now we have
That
an
was what
actual
we
board.
used
It was
to
called
be.
a club? Really? Okay. I learned something new. So maybe you can start there. It'll help you out, and
See,
see what you can get, I don't know.
Wasn't a club, it's a Beaches and Shores Advisory Board. Just
Okay,
for the
so,
record.
so who's this report which you published says club on it. So who is the club it was for? This Green Coast Consulting. Are they still around, Green Coast Consulting?
I haven't researched if they're still around.
I'll get you somebody for dune restoration.
Yeah.
I actually worked on a project with my school and my students where we planted endangered plants in Delray and sea oats, and we grew them and in a greenhouse and all that. That
Great.
person still is available, and I'm gonna consult with him. That's why I want to do dune restoration.
So we're going to table the idea of making any recommendations on dune restoration until we have more information. Fair enough?
If I can add, Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission, FDEP are great resources for information. I believe it is Florida Fish and Wildlife Commission that has best management practices specific to dune restoration. That may be something you want to look at. Again,
Okay.
when you look at the agenda memorandum, it's really about an educational outreach, right? Giving resources to the residents so they could choose as they wish. So just something to.
I think that would be very much right up my alley.
Perfect.
And the intercoastal.
Excuse me?
And the intercoastal. I'm never
What?
going to give up on that.
You're tenacious, Ms. Chapelier.
I am. It's going to happen.
And your tenacity will get you everywhere. But the reality is I can't address, this board cannot address issues that it doesn't have.
They're already doing
All
it.
right, so we're doing our best. So bottom line really is that I have to stop saying that. The fact is, we're in a situation where we made some recommendations today, I believe, regarding what we can work on. We're going to request the town commission, if I'm not mistaken, and the recommendation previously made, do some type of enforcement action, or at least consider the idea of expanding the role of our current enforcement officers. And basically continue forward with the idea of coming forward with a plan of action for dune restoration. As far as the coastal line is concerned and beaches, I don't know if we were really called upon by the commission to facilitate any type of action on that. I don't think so. I think they were primarily concerned with the dunes, but I'm concerned about the quality of the beach, and I'm concerned about keeping it clean. I don't think that at the time, I don't think we're in a position at this point to do much in the way of restoring it, except we could take care of what we already have. So on that note, unless there's other questions, comments, or concerns by our board.
If I may just add one note I wanted to bring to the attention of the board. I have mentioned at several meetings the climate change vulnerability assessment. We do have a link to the Coastal Resiliency Partnership, which the town of Highland Beach is part of with, I think it's 7 other communities. They do have a final report on the vulnerability assessment. Again, if you go to the main page on the town's website, you'll see a link to the Coastal Resiliency Partnership, and you can get access to the final vulnerability assessments, over 200 pages, but maybe a good read for the board.
Did you know that I could not find a beach ordinance in Delray? I could not find any obligations. Delray has a private beach. It's just an aside to this board. I tried to check and see what other towns near us had done in terms of ordinances. But coastal resiliency, do they also make recommendations on how we should take care of the beaches?
The climate change vulnerability assessment is really based upon 12 threats, one of them being shoreline recession, flooding, heat. There's 12 of them. There are, I believe I mentioned this at the last board meeting in August, there's several adaptation and mitigation strategies. There are mitigation adaptation strategies that are regional, and then there are specific adaptation strategies that are for each municipality that's part of the partnership. And you'll be able to see those when you go to look at the final report.
On that note, we'll progress on to item number, I guess it would be 10. Actually, it's on page 4. And it's labeled B also. So discussion of due management, we completed, referred to you on, discussed. Consideration of Natural Resource Advisory Board calendar dates. Is there a motion to approve the calendar dates that we've requested? And the calendar, what are our calendar dates for 2022, Ms.
If you
Thompson?
look at the very last page of your agenda, you'll see a memorandum that I prepared that goes over the proposed natural resources calendar date schedules for next year.
Oh, really?
And these actually coincide with all of the meetings. So as far as natural resources, the meetings are the first Wednesday of the quarter in the months. So February, May, August, and November, and at 1 p.m. As the boards previously stated that they prefer their meetings at 1 p.m.
I think it's missing from my packet. I
The
don't
very
have it.
last.
It's a
page
very last page.
Yeah.
I
You got
have
it.
page 404 and it has November, has dates on it for
It's
announcements.
page 173,
Of the actual agenda packet.
Oh, the agenda, I'm sorry, what page is it?
173.
Yeah, it's the
Okay.
last page.
Oh, yeah. I got lost reading through this. Very long report for CPE. Okay. So we have a potential of February 2nd, May 4th of 2022, of course. May 4th of 2022. Do you know what day of the week these are?
Wednesday.
All Wednesdays?
They're all Wednesdays.
Does any member of the board wish to discuss what dates are appropriate or not? Is there a problem with any of these dates that anyone has? February 2nd, 4th, August 3rd, and November 2nd? Looks good. But you all right?
I'll be here.
We're all going to be around? Okay. So on that note, do I have a motion to approve the new dates for the meetings for 2022? Please.
I make a motion to approve the dates as read
Do I have a
a few
second?
seconds ago.
I second it.
Thank you. All in favor, say yes.
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 Okay. A couple of our members had to leave, so we still have a quorum at this point, thankfully. All right, announcements. There's going to be a town commission meeting on November 9th at 1:30 p.m. There's going to be a planning board regular meeting on November 10th at 9:30 a.m. There's going to be a town hall is closed in observance of Veterans Day on November 11th. And on November 16th, we have another town commission meeting at 1:30 p.m. Just for the sake of discussion, December 7th has been mentioned as a date. At what time is the meeting on December 7th? The board is requested to attend.
Typically, commission meetings are at 1:30.
1:30 in the afternoon? Okay. So are we all going to, are we going to all be able to make it to that meeting on the 7th? Of December? D-Day, I think. Is that D-Day? I forgot.
I don't know. Oh, my God. it
Not
is.
D-Day. Was that the day? December
Yes,
7th?
that's Pearl Harbor Day.
Pearl Harbor Day. I'm sorry. Pearl
Yes.
Harbor Day, not D-Day.
Yes.
All the veterans out there, please excuse me. Anyway, the reality is yes. Okay, so on that note, I'm going to move to adjourn the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Thank you all for attending the meeting today, and to the general public, thank you for your patience, and look forward to having you back. We hope. Ms. Thompson, are we